Boy, that one tap just does it, doesn't it?
Where I tell stories, I should make sure.
Okay, I think we're ready to get started this evening. Good evening and welcome. We always appreciate the guests that are in the audience, and so thank you for joining us tonight, and then thank you to those that are joining us online. We appreciate citizen participation in the process because it's an important one, so thank you. So this evening, we have the pleasure of having Megan Manlove here from Trinity Lutheran Church, and she's going to open us in prayer. And then if you don't mind leading us in the pledge. And as you come forward, I just want to say, Megan, thank you for making such a difference in our community because you're involved in a lot of different places, and it's greatly appreciated.
Holy God, we give thanks for this day of grace and for gathering us from different corners of the city to do the work you have put before us. Before we begin this work, we pray for your mercy and wisdom. Forgive us for self-centered living and failing to walk with humility and gentleness, for longing to have what is not ours, for an unwillingness to see your image in others. We lift before you all who govern. May those who hold power understand that it is a trust from you to be used, not for personal glory or profit, but for the service of the people. Derive from each one of us cynicism, selfishness, and corruption. Grant in your mercy just and honest government. And give us grace to live together in unity and peace. Look with compassion on the whole human family. Take away the arrogance and hatred that infect our hearts. Break down the walls that separate us. Unite us in the bonds of love. And through our struggle and confusion, work to accomplish your purpose on earth, so that in your good time, every person and nation may serve you. We pray with grateful hearts. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Megan, thank you. And I would say, I hope we can live up to that. That was good. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. So let's start with roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Bruner.
Here.
Here.
Hogaboom,
Here.
Levi,
Present.
Haverfield,
Here.
Skog.
Here.
Thank you. So I do not know of any proposed amendments to the agenda. Does council have any that they're aware of? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. Would there be a motion to approve our consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hogaboom,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Skog,
Yes.
Bruner,
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is our Small Business Saturday. So it's proclamations, excuse me, and it's Small Business Saturday. And so I'll quickly read this proclamation. And this is, whereas Nampa, Idaho celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and the community around the United States. According to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 30.7 million small businesses in the United States, and they represent 99.7% of all firms with paid employees in the United States and are responsible for 64.9% of the new jobs created from 2000 to 2018. And whereas small businesses employ 47.3% of the employees in the private sector in the United States, and whereas 94% of consumers in the United States value the contributions small businesses make in their community, and whereas 96% of consumers who plan to shop on Small Business Saturday said the day inspires them to go small, independently owned retailers or restaurants that they have not been to before or would not have otherwise tried. And 92% of the companies planning promotions on Small Business Saturday said the day helps their business stand out during the busy holiday shopping season. And whereas 59% of small business owners said Small Business Saturday contributes significantly to their holiday sales each year. Whereas Nampa, Idaho supports our local businesses that create jobs, that boost our local economy and preserve our communities, and whereas advocacy groups as well as private and public organizations across the country have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday, I, Debbie Kling, Mayor of the City of Nampa, Idaho, here do proclaim Saturday, November 30th, 2019 as Small Business Saturday. I urge the residents of our community and communities across our country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Is there anyone here to speak on this? I don't have word. Beth? Well, hi, Jay. So what do we have going downtown on small, or just across our community, not just downtown? Because Small Business Saturday is important everywhere, right?
You summed up very well what Shop Small Saturday is. And on Saturday, November 30th, Nampa will be participating and celebrating the 10th anniversary of Shop Small Saturday. Established in 2010, Shop Small Saturday is designed as a day to show our collective support of small independent businesses and call attention to the valuable and distinct contributions they make to our community and to our local economy. We all have favorite small businesses that we just can't imagine living without. However, fewer small businesses are opening and staying open these days. To be successful in today's environment requires an abundance of grit, passion, and determination. And studies show that for every $100 spent in the local business, as the mayor said, 68 of those dollars stay in the local economy. Not only do local businesses employ more people directly per dollar of revenue, they're also the customers of local printers, accountants, wholesalers, and other specialized services. And this increases the opportunity for local entrepreneurs, making that local dollar work even harder. In addition to the Shop Small Saturday, I'd like to acknowledge our friends at Idaho Press who have partnered with D.L. Evans Bank in what's called the $2 Challenge. And I've got my $2 here. They're challenging our community to commit to spending $100 of their Christmas budget here in local businesses in the form of $2 bills. So these are available at D.L. Evans. They brought a stock of them in. And you can sign up for the challenge by visiting idahopress.com. And as a summary, small businesses are the fabric of our communities. They create jobs. They help boost the economy, enhance local neighborhoods in many ways. And with our retail landscape evolving, it's more important than ever to back our small businesses that are vital to creating thriving communities and maintaining a vibrant Main Street. So I encourage you all, actually I'm going to challenge you all to participate this year in the $2 Challenge, and I'm going to be downtown, so I'll keep my eye out for you on the 30th. Mayor, thank you. Council, thank you.
Thank you.
So do we, Mayor, Council, just go to D.L. Evans and say that Jay authorized that we all receive $52 bills?
For every $10 that you take in, you can.
It was a joke. You gotta. Okay.
I'm in. I just have to
Any
get
other
there.
jokes?
No, sorry.
So you have to have cash though to get your, I found that out
Yeah.
2 years in a
Have
row.
cash
You do not
exchange.
try to go with a card or a check. They don't, unless you bank there. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, it is a cash exchange.
okay. Awesome, thank you. We have one other proclamation. I'm not going to read it, and there isn't anyone here to talk about it, but this is also, November is General Aviation Month. We have an amazing airport in our Nampa Airport, and I just so appreciate it. And I like to say we're going to have the best little airport there is right here in Nampa, Idaho. We do. And so if anyone's ever eaten out there or toured the Warhawk Air Museum or just enjoyed it, there's a park right there by the runway. We have an awesome airport, and this is General Aviation Month. The next item on the agenda is the opportunity for a Nampa resident to speak for 3 minutes. And any comments related to zoning and land use matters can only be made during the publicly noticed public hearings. And actually, right now, we don't have anyone signed up. Is there anyone that intended to speak this evening that did not get signed up? I think this is the first time in a long time that we've not had anyone signed up. So there we go. Well, the next item on the agenda are mayor and council comments. And I do have a few comments. I so appreciate Amy always having me ready. Thank you, Amy. So one thing I would like to start with is congratulating Sandy Levi and Jacob Bauer on the election. The last meeting that we had was the day before the elections, and we did talk about the people that were running for office and how much we appreciate people that are willing to step up. I would like to congratulate Sandy Levi and Jacob Bauer on their reappointment, and Darrell Bruner. Good grief, Darrell. Because Darrell did not have an opponent, I'm forgetting to congratulate him, but thank you for your service.
I heard there was a lot of write-ins.
Thank you for continuing. To our two current city council members, I really appreciate your continuance on the council. Thank you for what you do. And to Mr. Bruce Skog, we will formally bid you farewell, but you're appreciated too. We have appreciated working with you and we'll miss you, but we won't miss you yet. We'll let that wait until January. All right. Okay. We did miss you at the last meeting, though. Yeah.
I was working hard.
I think you must have been. I heard something about that. Yeah. So the other thing that I want to mention, this beautiful flyer, so November 30th is the downtown Christmas tree lighting, and I think there are extra flyers in the back. Is that correct? If anyone would like to take one and put it up. We have a beautiful tree again this year. I think every year we do, but it's massively big. And but this year is the first year that we actually have a market downtown. It's going to be from noon to 5 over in the Lloyd Square. We have a number of vendors on there that are signed up to be there. It is the Small Business Saturday, so you can wander around. There are carriage rides and pictures with Santa in Lloyd Square from 3 to 5. The tree lighting entertainment begins at 5:15, and the lights actually turn on at 6. Thank goodness last year that someone else turned them on, since I forgot to. So I've decided I'm never again turning on the lights. It's somebody else. So Darren, I know that you're going to have that handled, right? Somebody else flips the switch. And then we do encourage the community, as it says on here, to shop, shine, and dine downtown. So how's that for a commercial? And I think that's it for my announcements. City Council.
Just quickly, back to the Mayor's Cup. By the way, the mayor threw up a great ceremonial jump ball last Tuesday night, and the Napa University, NNU, holds the Mayor's Cup for at least one more night. So they compete again at C of I tomorrow, so
I hope
thanks.
it was good. It was boy, if you want a good basketball game, that was a really good basketball game. My goodness. Yeah, that's some of the best ball that you can watch,
Well, it's
basketball.
over 100 years of competition between the two schools, 7 miles away, so that's pretty neat, yeah.
It's awesome. Yes, thank you. Is there anything else on Mayor and Council updates? Okay, so let's move to the next item on the agenda, which are agency and commission reports. And our first report this evening is a report regarding a census, and I'll let Amy do the introduction. Thank you, Amy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Amy Bowman, Communications Manager, and as you may know, every 10 years, the United States does a census. And what was really exciting for me to understand and learn, as I'm getting older and wiser, is that it's not just about head counts, it's actually about funds and representation from Congress. So that was good. And you might be interested to know that we did a quick count. Everyone in this room, we tally up to about $76,556 per year for the census. Every person represents approximately 1,473.
That we
in
would
Idaho.
receive as a community.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah. So we represent dollars and cents, which is it's a census joke. It's better than sewer jokes, can I just say? Okay, but it is my pleasure. It is my pleasure to introduce Jay Black. She is with the United States Census.
And as Amy steps back, one of the things we talked about Amy mentioning, just so that council knows what we're doing as a city, as they listen to the presentation that you're putting your committee together. Did you just say that?
Sorry. Yes.
Okay.
So we are in cooperation with the national, state, regional efforts, creating a local count committee. And so we hope to actually have a first meeting in December and then continue our educational and outreach through 2020. For the first time, I don't want to steal your thunder, but it's so exciting. For the first time, we're making history because you'll be able to take the census online. And so in addition to phone, mail, and then, of course, the census workers that come to your house, you'll also be able to take it online. And so we'll be working with the agencies to help educate our community.
Thank you. I just thought it was important for council to, as they listen, to know that Amy is our point of contact. She's leading this. We will have a committee in place, and so there is some work to do. We did not budget anything for it, but we will get it done, and we need everybody's help. So, thank you. Thank you, Jane, for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for allowing me to be here to talk about the census. We actually, our tagline is, "Be counted, it makes census." So we will work with Compass to kind of be able to do some promotion. The purpose of the census is to count everyone once and only once and in the right place. We do it because it's mandated by our Constitution. We've actually done a decennial census every 10 years, beginning in 1790. So we've been doing a 10-year count for quite a while. Again, it's part of our Constitution. That's why we do it. It's a part of apportioning the U.S. House of Representatives. There are 435 House of Representatives. That's a fixed number. In 2010, Texas actually gained an additional House of Representatives, and California lost one. Idaho and Nevada are the fastest growing states in the nation. We've got a 2.1% growth. There is a very outside chance if we can get all Idahoans counted, we may again get an additional House of Representatives to represent Idaho. If you look at just in your own communities, you look at how the growth has occurred, how new subdivisions are going up, new apartment complexes. Our state legislation is going to also probably be affected by the census counts. So we can look at some rezoning, we can look at some redistricting, even in our own state. Also, in 2010, there was a $675 billion, we call it a government pie. So $675 billion available that was distributed to all 50 states plus the District of Columbia based on population counts. In 2010, Idaho received $2.6 billion from that budget. So you can imagine with the growth that we've had, what the 2020 budget's going to be. In 2016, the George Washington Institute on Public Policy has documentation that shows Idaho received $3.6 billion. In the folders that I gave you on the left-hand side of your packet, there's a sheet that shows, if you turn it over, the 55 federal agencies in Idaho that received part of that $3.6 billion. So it's a pretty significant amount of money. It supports a lot of programs that our citizens desperately need. And it's not just the poor, it's not just the minority populations. When you think about a pothole in the middle of the road, you think about a park that you want to put into your city, those funds come from the census dollars. There's federal programs that pay for that. Again, it's about $1,473 per person counted for 10 years. Guaranteed money that this state's going to get. Again, some of the ways that money is used, you can see it's not just the disadvantaged that receives those funds. It's all of us that participate and respond and are available for that. Again, as Amy said, we're really excited. We've got a new way to respond this year. It's going to be in the month of March of 2020, you'll receive a postcard in the mail. That postcard will have a census address, and it'll have a census 800 number. On March 23rd, you can go online, log into the census website. On your postcard, you'll have a code that's been attached uniquely to your address. When you enter in that code, your 10-question census form will come up. And so within 10 minutes, perhaps, you can complete your census form, submit it, and you're done. If you don't have a computer, you don't have internet access in your home, you're in maybe an area that the satellites don't work real well, you can call on the telephone, the 800 number. The same thing, enter in your code, answer those 10 questions. Again, about 10 minutes of your time, and you've completed the census. If you don't want to do the modern technology, if you'd really like to have the paper and pencil, that form will be available to you. It'll be mailed to you with the return envelope. So you can fill out the form if you'd like. we're going to be real kind of, after you. If you haven't returned a form by internet, you haven't phoned in a form, you haven't mailed in a form, somebody's going to knock on your door. We're going to try and reach out to every Idahoan a minimum of 5 times to try and get response. It just means too much to not be able to hear from everybody. If you're concerned, the U.S. Census Bureau does not share data with any other agency ever. It's against federal law to do that. If I share data, it's a 5-year prison term and $250,000 fine for the rest of my life, not just as I'm a census employee. When you fill out your form, your name and the name of the people that are in your house on April 1st, when you submit that to the Census Bureau, your name actually gets blacked out or gets redacted for 72 years. So when you fill out that form, your name is not going to be associated to any of that data until 2092. And that's purposeful because we figure you're 18 years old when you fill out the form, 72 years later you're 90 if you're still around. You maybe don't care, who knows, what you put on the form. We have a lot of folks that do genealogy studies, and they've said to us, census data is one of the best ways to get information, but we can't find anybody after 1940. And that just goes to show that 72-year rule really does take place. We don't share data with the INS, we don't share it with the IRS, we don't share it with law enforcement. We can't by law. We've been subpoenaed and we've been able to deny and say we are not going to release that information. So you should feel safe when you do the census form. Impact to the region, we need to know that in Kootenai County, for example, up in Coeur d'Alene, they had about a 75 to 80% response rate. In Idaho in 2010, we had about a 77% response rate. If you take the number of residents in Idaho that didn't respond, that's about 300,000 people. When you multiply that by 1473, that's $560 million that we didn't get because we didn't get those folks counted. It's absolutely critical that we do that. We're especially going to focus on hard-to-count populations. So with me, I have recruiters. I have an additional partner specialist, which is what my job is. So we're going to be working with the faith-based communities. We're going to be working with the Hispanic Latino community, the migrant workers, the refugee populations in Boise and in Idaho. So we're going to be trying to reach out and find those trusted people in the community that will want to get this message out about how important it is to stand up and be counted. So my ask of you tonight, as a council, as a group of citizens, if there's someone that you think needs to hear this message, you've got my contact information. My colleagues here will also provide you information for contact. We would love to come and spread this message. We're passionate that we want all Idahoans counted. So that's how you can help, is to, contact us. Let's get the word out. In January, you're going to start hearing public service announcements. You're going to start seeing information on newsletters and websites, on TV. So you're going to be getting a lot of information about the importance of the census and how it's going to be happening. The other good thing is we're looking for employees. We want to have about 9,000 applications in Idaho. And we've got about 2,600 that we need just here in Canyon County. So if you're looking for a part-time job, it pays $13.50 to $15 an hour and 58 cents a mile. It's 25 to 40 hours a week, and it's a flexible schedule. So if you want some information, there's a website here. There's information in the back of the room. We've got some brochures. We've got recruiters here if you want to have a chance to talk with some of these folks. We're looking to get applications in right now. We've talked about being a complete count committee. We've got information if you want some help with that. If you want some workbooks, some training manuals, we've got all kinds of information. We'll be happy to work with you and share that with you. Questions, comments, thoughts, challenges? What do you see as a challenge? As a city council, as a community, what were your challenges?
I want to see us get to 100%. I want to see our percentage hit because it's important. So it's going to, but it's going to take everybody, it's going to take our community. I personally really appreciate what you shared, which is so important, which is the confidentiality of the information. That's the greatest concern. And so if you want to get everybody to participate, everyone needs to understand that it's confidential. And funding for our community is dependent upon it, not just our state. So to get everybody counted is important.
So Mayor, quick question. So are you able to go into elementary schools, to the schools in Nampa? And as far
We
as,
actually have a whole curriculum called Statistics in Schools. And I've met with the state educators, I've met with the curriculum person there, and I've also met with several of our school superintendents. I cover pretty much Boise County, Valley County, Custer County, and Lemhi County. And I just made a trip up and talked with every school superintendent. It's curriculum for pre-K through 12. There's worksheets, there's going to be all kinds of lesson plans. It's social studies, it's math, it's science, it's government. So that curriculum is available for almost any subject.
well, what I'm thinking, I'm sure you're going to cover that, but like Kathy Tuck, the marketing director for the Nampa City Schools, you know, where they send out information to all parents and so on, I would think that would at least make sense. So
Oh,
you probably are already on that, but, okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
have you ever had to prosecute someone simply because they refused to answer your questions door to door?
Like I say, we have identification. We've sent out information to every police department across the country. And so if someone shows up at your door and they don't have an official badge, they also should have a briefcase that has the big white census logo on it. They probably will have a laptop because we're trying to move to the electronic age, so they'll maybe take your census information on a laptop. But yeah, the police departments, if someone's at your door and they don't identify themselves as a census worker,
Excuse me, that wasn't my question.
sorry.
That is, it's a legitimate census worker, and the homeowner says, I don't want to answer your questions.
yeah, and in some parts of Idaho, we know we actually have a red alert line. Our census employees, if they go to a property and there's a sign on the gate maybe that says no trespassing and there's a couple dogs in the yard, we call the alert line and we report that and are told, usually there's some information that's looked at to say this person should not be bothered. Don't enter their property. So
But-
we are very careful with our employees, and we respect if someone doesn't want to do a census, you know, it is a law. It is required by law to do it. I've never seen a case that's been prosecuted because somebody hasn't.
Just curious, thank
Yeah.
you.
But it is a law actually if you need to be truthful on your census form. But again, if I am vain and want to put my birth date as a little bit younger than I am, nobody's probably going to ask me for my birth certificate.
You're not asking Wade, are you?
So, good question. though. Yeah, it is a law to do the census, and U.S. Marshals at one time were the census takers. So,
Wow. Yes.
Quick question, as far as the online to go, is it the 2020 census.gov or is it just census.gov?
it's 2020census.gov. It's
Okay.
for the jobs and for the site that has a lot of the.
No, I mean actually to do
Oh no, it'll
my
be
self-reporting.
No, it'll be a unique. It won't be the general site. It'll be a unique email address, and I don't know what that's going to be yet. They haven't shared that with us.
And did I see that that doesn't even happen until March?
March 23rd is when it's going to be live.
Okay.
And it is important to know if you get an email that says click here to do your census, that's bogus. That somebody's hacked you because you have to go yourself to the site and log in. You can't click here. If you get an email, if you get a phone call and somebody says, I'm Jane Black with the census, I'm here to take your census information, that's also a scam. You will have to call the number. So it's a self-initiated type of response.
So that comes in the mail as far
The
as,
form will, the postcard will, yes.
Okay.
The first part of March.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Boy, the education on the scam part's going to be interesting.
There'll be a lot of information about that. We have probably one of the most secure sites, and the data is almost immediately when it's coming in, like I say, there's names that are scrubbed immediately. So it's statistics. It's not who is who and, you know, any
It's just the
personal
scammers
information.
using it as an opportunity.
Yes,
But
for sure.
Jane, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Okay, we have another agency or commission report, and this is our Healthy Nampa Impact Coalition, and Jean Mucci is going to be here this evening, or she is here this evening. And I tell you, you talk about a powerhouse, Jean. She does an amazing job. Thank you to the census team as they go. Thank you.
Hi.
Good evening.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Tom Patterson. I'm a pediatrician with Family Medicine Residency of Idaho, and so excited to be here to talk to you about this important issue. Adverse childhood experiences, are something that I have come to know and work. After 22 years of practice, I'm doing things totally different. If we think about an adverse childhood experience, it's basically anything that a child encounters that they're not ready to handle. Their buffering system's not prepared to handle. Adversity comes in abuse, neglect, household dysfunction. Abuse can be physical, emotional, sexual. Neglect can be physical, emotional. Household dysfunction, mental illness of a parent, mother with violence against her, divorce, incarcerated parent, substance abuse in the parent. These are ACEs that were established in 1998. So imagine how many more ACEs we could put on the list in 2019. As our ACE score goes up, our outcomes for over 40 health conditions increases. So if we look at this pyramid, it's one of my favorite things to understand this. At the bottom, you've got an adverse childhood experience. The body keeps track of this. It disrupts your neurodevelopment. That leads to social, emotional, cognitive impairment. That gets people to adopt a risky behavior as their perceived solution to the problem. That leads to disease, disability, and social problems. And if you have enough ACEs, you die up to 20 years sooner. So this is incredible. So what are we doing in Idaho? We know that the most commonly reported ACEs in Idaho are poverty, divorce and broken homes, substance use, and mental illness. Only 4 states in the United States have a higher prevalence of children with 3 or more ACEs. So we're experiencing this at a higher rate. US data for kids with a score of 3 or more is in the 11% range. We're at 15%. And Idaho is just now starting to look at more broad ACE data. So this is early data for us. If we look at what the impact is, each ACE score you have increases your risk of an adverse outcome. 1 in 5 children in Canyon County live in poverty. Children with an ACE score of 4 or more are more likely to have a substance use disorder as an adult. We already talked about 4 ACEs, you die 20 years sooner. ACEs contribute 200 million lost work days each year. And each ACE costs the U.S. employer about $17 to $44 or $44 billion in lost work days a year. If you have an ACE score of 4 or more, you're 12 times more likely to commit suicide. And we're seeing this at a huge rate. October was suicide season for us in the pediatric world, which is sad. If we invest in children, every dollar we spend, we save $7. And you can see on the right, in terms of the breakdown, but it's a $124 billion cost to us to not do something about ACEs in the United States. So this is one of my favorite things. Trees are beautiful. We have them all over our city. Below are the roots. These are where the problems occur: the lack of opportunity, the impoverishment, community disruption, violence, poor housing, poor access to housing. This leads to domestic violence, homelessness, substance use, mental illness, divorce, and that's what's showing above. We're looking at those problems. We were taught as doctors to try to fix those problems, but we really need to go and feed the roots. And that's when we invest in our communities. So I want to leave you with the thought of, if you're in the woods and discover a bear, things happen neurophysiologically to you, and you either flee, you fight, or you freeze. That's adaptive when you escape that bear. What if you come home to a bear? What if your dad is a bear? What if your mom is a bear? You have all of those neurophysiologic processes going on full speed, and it changes your brain forever. It increases the fear center of your brain. It decreases the thinking and feeling center of your brain, and that leads to that cognitive impairment. So as adversity goes up, bad outcomes goes up. But we as a community can buffer that. We as parents, grandparents, neighbors, we can buffer that and keep adversity from having bad outcomes for our people. I'm a pediatrician, but this is a pediatric problem. It's a newborn problem. It's a geriatric problem. So if we invest in feeding the roots, we get a beautiful tree. I speak for 4 hours on this topic, so I'm going to stop, let Jean talk. But I'd be happy to meet with any of you to talk about this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for helping explain that very briefly. And then, Jean, thank you for taking us to that next step. What are we going to do about it?
Resilience. There's always hope, and that's the beauty in this. So I co-chair Healthy Impact Nampa Coalition with Sherry Ainsworth from St. Alphonsus. So I've spoken to many of you about that before. And so when we did community level assessments, multiple, there were about 3 or 4 different assessments that really showed the same thing. We had housing spectrum issues, we had transportation challenges, we had access to healthy food challenges, but a couple of the other things that came up regularly were trauma and crisis and degradation of family structures, and then also poverty. It continues to come up, and our kids are starting school way behind. And by the end of 3rd grade, those keystone outcomes for many of our children are not being met. So the mayor's asked us to figure out how this links into the comp plan redesign. And so really what Dr. Patterson said is we have to get to the root cause. And St. Luke's unanimously across our health system footprint has adopted resilience building and ACEs mitigation as our key focus. So we are all in on this because we know that having this be so predictive to 7 of the 10 leading causes of death is something we can't look away from. When we know better, we have to do better. So we are all in on this, and resilience is really the key. So I'd like to say that resilience is really the ability to bounce forward from adversity. So you don't want to bounce back into the same thing that created the adversity, but we want to bounce forward. So what we're doing is that we're going to really approach this resilience, and it can be built. You can see Mayor Kling and Mayor Nankolis, they're really leaning in literally and figuratively with these kids. But the key ingredient, truly, we're not asking people to launch a rocket ship. It's the relationships that children have with others who care about them. So even if at home, the bear that Dr. Patterson mentioned, if that bear is living there, it could be Councilman Haverfield's daughter-in-law at Endeavor Elementary, leaning in with those kids and being that buffer and that protective factor for those kids. So they know somebody at school cares about them, even if when they go home, they're coming home to adversity. Each of those positive experiences starts to create this resilience. And it's really about the social connections, really understanding adolescent development. Really, when you look at MRI scans of these kids who are bathed in these stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, their brain literally develops differently. But we can reprogram the brain by building resilience and having these protective factors in schools with concrete support in times of needs. That's why our community schools are so important. Cognitive and social emotional competence. You hear a lot about social emotional learning at Endeavor and Central in these schools where we have more vulnerable kids. Reducing stressors. So in a lot of the schools, they're creating spaces where the kids can say, I'm going to flip my lid. They just hold their hand up. I'm going to flip my lid, which that means, and then go for a walk. They're just saying, I can't have people continuing to come at me. I just need to go for a walk. That's a protective factor. It creates resilience in them saying, I need a minute, and they're starting to understand that much more acutely. And then really at the community level, these safe, stable, and nurturing environments. So imagine what we can do together, hopeful. Dun, dun, dun. To see kids succeed. Wednesday morning, you're all invited to a breakfast, and we're going to start to discuss what does this look like. So Healthy Impact Nampa has to be a little small because we're sharing the stage with the Caldwell Health Coalition. So the mayor has worked with us to invite all the elected officials from Canyon County. And we're really going to lean in on what does it look like to see kids succeed. I think that's a shared value for all of us. None of us really wants to know that our kids are not, even if their start line's different, we can help get their finish line to be the same. They can actualize what they're capable of, and that's all of us leaning in. So we're going to build education and awareness, address how this connects to our health coalitions, and then really to create alignment and coalition building. Who needs to be at the table? What's needed to make it happen? How do each of you and our state and other county leaders champion this? And then what does success look like? So it's time, I think, for all of us to understand the data, but then also know that we really have to get at that root level. We're not going to solve 30 years of intergenerational poverty on the north side by continuing to do the same things. It's not working. We really have to address the root cause. So we hope you join us, and Wednesday will only be a start. We've got a long ways to go. Communities who have been successful are now starting to see transformational data 10 years in. Youth suicide attempts going down by 98% in some of these counties who've really leaned in. So I think it's incumbent on all of us to say Canyon County can be the healthiest place for kids to grow and thrive, and we hope you link arms. Thank you.
Jean, thank you so much. Are there any questions? Hopefully, we can be there on Wednesday morning.
What time is that?
7:30,
Oh, okay,
7:30.
until,
9.
okay.
We did it early for breakfast to hopefully get you out. We have a great panel. Brian Taylor will be a panelist. Shelley Bonds from the Nampa School District. We've got Donna Shines from the Mentoring Network. Luis Granados from Breaking Chains Academy of Development. And then somebody from the Idaho Youth Ranch. And then Matt Davison will be moderating that panel. And then Roger Sherman, our state arm for child abuse prevention.
At the Civic Center? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Jean, thank you so much for your leadership and counsel. To me, this is one of those things where we've decided we want to be a safe and healthy community where people prosper. It begins with our kids. And so we know what our stats are, but we're going to change them. And I'm excited about working together to get that done through this 2C Kids
You
Succeed.
do not have to be predictable.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you. I think on staff communications, Tom, if you don't mind, let's have Joe Huff go first. Chief Huff, we're going to put you first on the staff report. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So I just wanted to, I have actually two things. I was just sitting in the back thinking that the main thing is I want to talk to you about Jamie Burns, our new lieutenant. But I actually wanted to take the opportunity about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go down to Chicago to the International Police Chiefs Conference, and I just wanted to express my gratitude to the council for letting me go there. There was 3 of us from the police department that went, Captain Schenkel, Lieutenant McGuire, and myself, and it was a first-class conference. I believe Councilman Scogg and I spoke about it, so I was just going to, number one, thank you for that opportunity and let you know that I got to hear a class from the United States Attorney Bill Barr, the FBI Director, and President Trump actually was the keynote speaker, so it was first class. And got some great ideas and some programs that we're going to bring back and implement here at the city. So again, but the reason I'm here tonight is a couple weeks ago I introduced Lieutenant McGuire and Lieutenant Peck to you as our 3rd and 4th lieutenants of the police department. Next Monday, a week from tonight on the 24th, it'll be official that Jamie Burns will be our 5th and final lieutenant. So that brings us fully staffed. So pretty exciting times for the police department. I'm going to steal a little bit of his thunder, and I actually had to write this down just for everything that he's going to be over, all the units that he's going to have. So he'll oversee our traffic team, our community service officers, our school resource program, the department range, the animal control officers, our volunteers, and our chaplain corps, and then just any other thing that comes up throughout the day. So Jamie's going to be a busy guy. So I just wanted to put a name with the face for you guys, and then have Jamie actually just give us a little bit about his history with the city of Nampa.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll just let you know that I've served about 18 years with the City of Nampa as a police officer. I came to Nampa as an Army veteran. I did about 8 years in the Army and came to work for this awesome agency. Most of my career with Nampa has been with the traffic unit, either enforcing daytime laws or as a DUI officer and supervisor. I love our traffic team, and I'm really excited that I get to keep that team as well as a lieutenant. I was really happy they let me do that. So really excited. It's all about perspective, I keep saying, even though the chief keeps making comments about 365 days of probation that I'm going to be on here pretty soon. So it's all right. But it's all about perspective. I'm really excited about the other 2 lieutenants that were just promoted and the other lieutenants that we work closely together. We have a great future coming up ahead with all of the new hires that we're hiring, patrol, CSO, all that good stuff. So I'm just really excited about the position and thankful for the opportunity. So thank you.
Jamie, thank you for serving. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for all the work that's done. We have an incredible police department. Chief, thank you for your leadership. Thank you. Okay, staff report, Tom Points.
Evening, Mayor, Council. So Nate and I will split this up today. Nate will cover the wet water end of the report, and I'll get to do the snow part. I guess they're both kind of wet, but anyway. for the snow report, you have your snow plan in the report. I just wanted to let you know that we have all the trucks outfitted with the plows, and we have all the salt and the brine that we need. And we're ready to start plowing as soon as the snow comes. We have a GIS section up and ready to go to track the plows as they start rolling. The team had a meeting a couple weeks ago and reviewed the plan and understand the responsibilities. And then you're probably wondering what the winter's going to be like. And so from what I can tell we talked to various sources about this, and it's still weather predictions, so we don't know 100%, but we talked to NOAA, the National Weather Service, and then also we have still have some contacts at the state with our avalanche techs up there in Loma. They're really good at knowing what's going to happen. But they said it's going to be a drier and milder winter. So I guess we'll see. Any questions about that?
I appreciate your work. Thank you. It's important that we're on top of it on that snow plan.
So I guess that means that Rick and I not to put our golf clubs away yet.
That's right. Not quite yet.
You're playing in the snow anyway.
And they're open on Thanksgiving Day. I think. Mhm.
Oh, good.
Good evening, Mayor,
Good evening.
Council. On the water side, so we wrapped up the fiscal year 2019 irrigation and domestic season. So I got some stats to share with you there. On our water quality projects for irrigation, we completed the third year of water quality improvements from adding filters to pump stations, adding new pump out stations for getting sediment out of the pipelines, and then maintenance at the actual pump houses themselves. So we've seen, this last year, we saw almost a 30% decline in customer complaints, so it seems to be working, and we're going to continue this program. It's budgeted and funded for this year. Along the breaks, there are a lot of assets in the city, pipelines that are old. This last fiscal year, we saw 19 irrigation mainline breaks, and we had 24 domestic mainline breaks. These numbers we're a little higher this last year over the last 3-year running average. We're getting up around above 60, in the neighborhood of 60 breaks. So we're monitoring it. We have replacement dollars in the domestic fund, and we're tackling them as they come along. For production for the last year, the domestic system, we delivered 2.8 billion gallons of water. That's just about average for the year. In your packet notice, it's incorrectly noted. The actual domestic delivery for last year was 2.8 million, about average for the last couple of years. On the irrigation side, it's down almost 1 billion gallons. And a lot of you know it was a pretty mild summer, pretty short summer, long spring. We delivered 7.9 billion gallons of irrigation water. Any questions?
I do, Mayor Kling. I got to ask you, is our pipe sufficient for the flow and increase of population that we have now? Or is it lacking?
So, Mayor and Councilman Rodriguez, so the system's always growing to meet the new demand on it. And the way both the domestic system and the irrigation pipelines are built is in a kind of a grid. So the grid sizing for the volume services maybe a certain area. And then as we expand that grid, we have to drop in another pump. So both the pipe sizes that you see today, 8 to 12 inches in that grid, the large half-mile grid, are going to be the same, but you're going to see new pipes, same size, and then new wells or irrigation pumps from ditches.
Well, I wondered about that because we have a lot of pipe issues, pipes busting, and so I was wondering what's the main cause of it, and it can't be all age, I guess, or is it?
No, correct, Councilman. There's a combination of things, anything from installation by the contractors, as some of our most recent water line breaks around Flamingo, or irrigation breaks. A lot of these lines, the older, originally back in the 80s, were brought in on the back of lots, so you get tree roots that grow in. And then downtown corridor, you'll see the water main breaks just due to the old corroded pipe that needs to be replaced. It's at its end of its life.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a quick little update on the wastewater side, but it's not so little. Funding for the wastewater program. DEQ issued the city the second installment of the $165 million loan. So if you recall back in very start of this year, they issued us $37 million. Just this month, they issued $24 million, the second installment, so we have $61 million. The city's not drawing on that loan yet. We're waiting for construction to get underway, but it puts the city in great position to control the phasing of the project to develop it in a cost-effective and at a rate that our contractors can manage. On the recycled water program, DEQ has the city's reuse permit. This is the permit that would allow the city to deliver Class A recycled water from the treatment plant to the Phyllis Canal. That permit is out for public comment. The state did spoke with us this last week. They are receiving a good number of comments, and they've all been favorable, which is unusual from their perspective, is what they told me. So I think it's just a testament to citizens and the effort here, the leadership, to get the word out of this great program. And then lastly, most importantly, the largest project of the wastewater program coming up. It's a $100 million progressive design build. The city received 5 design build team statements of qualifications. So if you recall, end of September, we put out the request for qualifications. It's a 2-step process where we will shortlist these teams, and then we'll go to a proposal phase that'll take us into next year. And then in April, May, we'll be back with council to sign a contract. And we received 5 teams. All teams are being evaluated, and we're working through the process. I can let you know that the teams, if that'd be helpful. CH2M Hill Jacobs, IMCO General Contractor, Alberici RSCI, they're a joint venture, M.A. Mortson Company, and Sladen Constructors. Thank you, Mayor.
Nate, thank you for your work. It's appreciated. I thank you because you're managing a lot and there's a lot going on there. Council, do you have any questions for Nate?
Mayor Kling,
Yes.
the additional 24 million, was that at the 1.68% interest as well?
Yes, Councilman, it is.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Nate. So, if the council doesn't mind, I would like to rearrange our agenda just a little bit, and I'd like to move staff or items 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. I'm going to ask that we do after public hearing and allow item number 5.4 to go before the public hearing so that we have citizens that are sitting here. Would that be fine with council? Is that good? Okay. So we are going to move to item 5.4 on the agenda, and this is an action item to authorize the approval of a waiver to allow a beer and wine license within 300 feet of a church or school for Hutchings Enterprises LLC DBA, which is H&M Meats, located at 215 14th Avenue South. And Debbie, unless you have something, okay, I'm going to defer to legal and let them introduce the process that we're going to go through tonight and to explain it. Doug, thank you.
Mayor and Council, so this item is not a public hearing, but I believe there's going to be a staff report, and then we're going to hear from an entity that is within 300 feet of the proposed license location. The license being issued here is governed by both city and state code. City Code 5211 says in part, location and distance from schools and churches shall be as complies with Title 23 State Code. Title 23 of State Code says no license shall be issued for any place where beer is sold or dispensed to be consumed on the premises. That is within 300 feet of any public school, church, or any other place of worship measured in a straight line to the nearest entrance to the licensed premises, except with the approval of the governing body of the municipality. And then it goes on to talk about grandfather rights. Neither city code nor state code provides any particular specific criteria for when a waiver is appropriate. So the waiver is entirely discretionary. In general, however, it seems that the law was passed by the state legislature to avoid some adverse consequences. There's an exception there in an instance where the specific circumstances help to mitigate those adverse consequences, and the decision as to whether or not any given license is appropriate is left in the hands of this body.
Thank you, Doug. So with that, we have decided that we would give opportunity for 3 different people to speak, correct? So we will, as long as the staff report is not trying to sway us one direction or the other, we would do a brief staff report that would just give us some facts. And we'll start with Beth Einig. The next person that we will ask to speak is the applicant for the alcohol license, for just a brief opportunity to express the intent and the desire for that license. The third person that will have the opportunity to speak, I believe if they're here, is the church, is the pastor from the church here. Okay, so David Ferdinand, you would be the one speaking. So we will give just a brief opportunity for those 3 people to speak. Again, this is not a public hearing.
Quick question, just for clarification. Is this a separate entity from the VCAT Lounge, or is this still for the VCAT Lounge? See,
This
H&M
is a
Meats.
separate entity
So this
because
is
they're
for
2 separate
H&M
businesses.
Meats is looking for. Oh,
Yes. They have 2 separate entrances and
Right.
2 separate operating areas within the building.
Okay, thank you.
So it's a separate entrance, separate entity. And this is not an alcohol license, it's for beer and wine only. Beth Einig, thank you.
Mayor and council, we talked this morning that just to provide a little bit of additional information as you deliberate this evening, certainly a hard decision. In our downtown strategic planning efforts, which we had the opportunity to speak to you guys about 2 weeks ago, I talked a little bit about some of the results from our strategic planning process over the last couple of years. And one of the things that we hear a lot from residents throughout the community is the desire to have additional dining establishments in downtown and additional entertainment opportunities. And recognize that our historic district, which runs from 16th Avenue to 10th Avenue between 4th Street and Front Street. We do have 5 churches within that historic district, some of which are in obviously historic church buildings. Some are in more retail-oriented buildings, and then you combine kind of 0 lot lines with all throughout the entire historic district where buildings abut each other, and there's not that separation that you would typically see in a general commercial area, perhaps on the boulevard, where you've got 50 feet separating different business types. There's a lot more interaction that takes place between businesses and whether it's nonprofits or church establishments, there's all those things that happen there. But I also think that it's all part of that living room that we're trying to create in downtown. And there's lots of things that take place in your living room and things that you may want to have and things you may not want to have. So I just encourage you to kind of think broadly about the overall strategic plan that we're working on to implement in downtown.
Thank you, Beth.
Questions?
Are there any questions for Beth? Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, so Mr. Hutchings, would you like to speak for a moment as to what you would like to do with H&M Meats and your request for this license? And you probably were not prepared for this, so yes.
I talked to the city clerk's office this morning, and they said I wouldn't have an opportunity. So I'll try to be brief, though. First, some of you have already been down to our place, so thank you for those who have come downtown and supported us. We basically created a small restaurant called The Block. The purpose of The Block was 2 things for us. Number one, it was an opportunity to give Nampa another option that was quick service, easy, and family friendly. Secondly, it was also to create a way for my employees to have more hours during the day. We're very seasonal on the catering, and our meat shop is slower, so we wanted to keep employees longer full-time and also hire more people, and this created that. Let's see. Yeah, with the beer and wine license, it's just a way to have additional revenue come in. A lot of restaurants in the area have them, and it's one thing that makes restaurants actually pencil out. You know, with the church's proximity, we certainly understand, and I put in my letter to you all, the need for a place of worship, and we've tried to be very cognizant of that with our business. And I even tried to reach out to the pastor several times through the VCUT process, and most recently with our, I guess, request for waiver, and didn't hear back. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have one question. So as you just mentioned, the block, and so you're opening, could you restate what your plan was as a restaurant? You're wanting to be open what hours?
So currently we're open Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. That was just a start. So we hope to open, probably our next move will be Wednesdays for lunches, and then after that we'll be open Fridays, full days. Catering's so busy during the month of December that we need to wait until probably January before we really start to open up hours.
And then another question, does the license, is this license for both the catering side? No, this is strictly for the,
I guess from a
Okay.
legal standpoint, my understanding is, yes, we could use it for catering by going through and getting a permit through the city or whatever municipality we would like to do that on. But really, we had a license under another company called Lane 23. Catering is not fun with alcohol. So my hope is really just for the restaurant itself.
okay. Go ahead. Councilman Haverfield.
Where will the restaurant be located? In your current location there facing the south side, or is it up and around the corner past the new cigar lounge?
No, it's in the current location. So if you've seen the new, or the mural there,
Right.
right in that red door, you go through there, and our meat shop and our restaurant are located there.
Okay, so it'll be in your current location then?
We also plan to have our outdoor seating, which will just be outside that garage door as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And then our last person, I think, David Ferdinand, you must be speaking on behalf of the church.
It's been quite an ordeal for for the Bible Pentecostal Church, and after much prayer over the question about alcohol within 300 feet, and now maybe 50 feet, 100 feet, the Bible Pentecostal Church contacted me this morning, and in regard to this ordeal with the VCUT, and now H&M Meats with beer and wine license, the church board met yesterday and unanimously voted to drop any and all action. They feel it possibly would be a detriment to the church in regarding to any future action that they may like to have with the city of Nampa toward the church or property during the pending remodel or sale of their building. As in the past 9 years, the church wants to remain a good neighbor to everybody. The church may end up selling and moving in this next year, and so the 300-foot code separating churches and alcohol, if that can't continue, then they just want to leave it in your hands and follow the historic process. They do not want to impose any further action on this body, and so I'm delivering that statement.
So, I'm sorry, David, I just want to make sure we understand that, what you just said, because that's important, and it's new. So what I think I understood you to say was the church is not coming forth with any opposition or any comment on it at this time.
They believe that the 300-foot code, it's already been done once, and so they're as we went through the process that we could do as the church, they voted yesterday not to take any further action. They just want, the process to follow what it should follow. And they want to be good neighbors. That doesn't preclude them from moving out of the city of Nampa. So that's the message he wanted me to deliver. If he wanted to deliver any other message, he would have been here tonight. But he had me, as you can see, there are several things that they want to be. They want to be a good neighbor. They want to be a good church body to the community. And they felt that if they went any further with any further action, it might hurt their neighbors. And so they did not want to take any further action.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
And so for council, I will say that because the last time there was some concern over communication, we did ensure, and it's in our packet, that we sent the letter in a timely fashion. I also asked the clerk's office to please follow up with a phone call and an email to communicate that we would ask them if they would submit something in writing so that we had a clear direction and had opportunity for them to have voice. So what I guess I'm saying is that we have ensured that we've had good communication from the clerk's office to the church that was the only property that was within 300 feet, knowing that there was someone within 300 feet. We did make sure there was due diligence in communicating to give opportunity. Hence, they must have decided to go ahead and meet and then send forth this message. So with that, I don't have any additional information other than what Doug has shared and the request that's before us this evening.
Mayor Kling, just a point of clarification from our attorney. If this is not granted tonight and the church sells and moves out of downtown, there's nothing precluding the applicant from moving forward at a future date with the same request.
Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, that's correct. There would be no necessity for a waiver if there was no church or place of worship, if it's not specific to this entity, but to its use. So if it was sold or they moved and a new use came in that was not a school or a church or another place of worship, then no waiver would be necessary.
So they'd be bound by that requirement. If a school were to come in downtown to take its place, then the same restriction applies.
Yes, Councilman Haverfield.
All right.
Does.
Thank you.
So, Madam Mayor, I'll just quick few little points and I'll make a motion. Number one, Mr. and Mrs. Hutchins, I just am so pleased with the business that they are doing and so on. But we have an Idaho State Code here that I'm not going to go against. The previous council situation we were in, I thought had extenuating circumstances, some miscommunication and so on, and would be really hinder investment in a business. So I will make the motion that we deny this waiver tonight.
I'll second that.
Is there discussion?
Mayor Kling, I was kind of thinking along the same lines that with all the deliberation that we've had on the V-cut, with it being 300 feet from door to door and that, there seemed to be, there was a path for it. In this case, being less than the 300 feet front door to front door, it would almost be adding insult to injury to the church to allow another use even closer than the other that caused so much angst. So I would not have supported at this point, but in the future, if the church were to sell, then obviously I'd be very much open to helping H&M Meats do what they would hope to do with this request tonight.
Okay. And seeing no other discussion, roll call.
Hogaboom,
No.
Levi,
A yes is to deny, correct?
The motion was to deny the waiver.
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Skog,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Brunner.
Yes.
So because it is after 7, we are going to step into our public hearings for this evening. And we will begin with item 6.1, and we will come back to number 5 on the agenda, or the section 5 at a later time. And while I'm getting there, our first public hearing, which is 6.1 on the agenda, is a modification of the First Amendment to a development agreement between Nampa North LLC and the City of Nampa. This was recorded on 12/29/17, and it is amending Exhibit B, which is a conceptual plan to allow a revised subdivision, allowing for a mix of fourplexes and single-family attached townhomes in place of the original mix of fourplexes and commercial lots. And this is on Gateway Business 2 zoned parcels. And then the second amending Exhibit C, conditions of approval as necessary for the Lost River Townhomes on the north side of East Cherry Lane, east of a parcel of land, which it's Government Lot 7, a portion of southeast quarter, the southeast quarter of Section 6. This is for KM Engineering LLP, representing North Nampa LLP. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval on this particular item, and we're going to start with the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Thanks for having me here this evening. My name is Stephanie. Address is 9233 West State Street, Boise, 83714, representing the applicant. Just to provide you a little bit of history on the project. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So the property was originally annexed and zoned in 2005 to the RS 8.5 zoning designation. There's a development agreement with a concept plan attached to it at that time. It was for all single-family residential. In 2017, it was rezoned to a mix of RS 8.5 and GB2. There's a preliminary plat attached to that designation as well for 119 single-family residential lots, 16 fourplex lots, 4 commercial lots, and 2 flex lots. And that's actually the plat you see down to the right-hand side. The RS 8.5 section was about 33 acres, and the GB2 section was about 10.3 acres. There was a development agreement modification that was done as well to accommodate that rezone and plat at the time. Our proposal, our current proposal is coming forth because the market hasn't supported commercial or the fourplex product at this location. The developer now wishes to pursue a new mix of mostly attached townhome product with fewer fourplex units. Our current proposal is to keep the zoning mix of RS 8.5 and GB2 and 119 single-family residential lots. As you mentioned, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved the preliminary plat for GB2 area for 81 single-family residential attached townhome lots, 5 fourplex lots, and no commercial lots. We are requesting a waiver for setbacks to accommodate the attached townhome units, and we are also requesting a development agreement modification to accommodate the change in concept plan. This is our new plan. You'll see that the GB2 section is that kind of bottom, is colored there. The old plat was 72 residential units. It comprised of 16 fourplex lots, 2 flex lots, and 4 commercial lots. Our new plat is 101 residential units, 5 fourplex units, which is 20 altogether, and 81 townhome lots. No commercial lots proposed with the new plat. This is an increase of 29 residential units and removal of all the commercial lots. Townhomes are proposed to be alley loaded. The rear of the units are going to face the alleys. Fronts will face the roadways. Utilities are going to be located within the alleys. Each unit will have either 1 or 2 car garage plus 1 or 2 parking spaces in the driveway. There will be additional parking proposed at strategic locations. You'll see that there are kind of groupings. This has a pointer or not, but so we've got parking here, here, and here. additional, and fourplex units are going to have a shared central parking kind of within this area there. Alleys and parking areas are going to be covered by a shared access and use agreement, which has been required to be recorded as part of the preliminary plat. Setbacks, we're requesting some waivers to those for the attached townhome units. Just a couple of requests there. So there's usually a required 15-foot setback for parking and building setbacks along local roads. The front setbacks, that's what's highlighted here. We're requesting 10 feet. And then the interior side setback is typically 5 feet, but we're requesting 0 to accommodate the attached units. So just to summarize, as you already did, the planning and zoning hearing, we received approval of the preliminary plat. We did receive a favorable recommendation on the DA modification and waiver request. And based on public testimony, the commission asked that we increase the setback on the southern boundary an extra 5 feet and include more vegetation here, which we've done. It's 20 feet now and it is more heavily vegetated. So in conclusion, we feel that the adjustments that we've made to this project are consistent with the overall goal of providing more housing to Nampa, and we feel that it would be a benefit to this growing area. Staff and the commission support this request, and we look forward to working with you further on this project.
Are there any questions at this time? Councilman Haverfield.
Just one, as I'm looking at the plan itself and the request for a variance to the setbacks. It appears that these are 1 and 2 car garage units, the townhomes themselves that are rear loaded. So how far off of the alley will the units be placed so that a second car can be added in tandem as far as parking for the single car garage units?
Councilman Haverfield, so we're requesting, I believe it's a 5-foot, let me find, it's a 5-foot request on the side, on the end units.
I'm talking about from the center line of the alley to the face of the building.
Yeah.
And that's where the garage door would be.
So for the garage, anything that's a parking is 20 feet.
So you have 20 feet from the edge of the alley. How wide's the alley? Is it 16 or 20 feet?
I don't know the answer to that question.
24?
24 feet, excuse me,
That's
thank
good.
you.
Okay. Okay, so it acts as a two-way drive then, and then there's 20 feet as far as for the car to park outside and the one inside. So
That's correct.
then you've satisfied that requirement. Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, thank you so much. We'll have the opportunity to come back and answer questions at the end. Thank you. Christy.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. So I'm Christy Watkins, planner for the City of Nampa. The action required from you tonight is approval of a modification of development agreement and for the waiver to modify the setbacks designated for the GB2 zone for this new proposed Lost River Townhome subdivision for a property located along the north side of Cherry Lane and to the east of Idaho Center Boulevard. The property is currently zoned GB2 and is surrounded by county and city residentially zoned properties. The northern portion of this property is already being developed as Lost River subdivision with single-family homes, and this portion that we're speaking about is the portion that fronts Cherry Lane. The comprehensive plan is community mixed use. It allows for higher density uses and it encourages the mixing of single-family and higher density multifamily units. As she mentioned, historically, this property has had various annexation and plat proposals applied for and withdrawn up until 2017 when it was annexed with the combination of zoning and was approved for the Lost River subdivision. The new development agreement would allow single-family townhomes as detached units with property lines dividing each, which would make each unit available for individual purchase and ownership. The fourplexes are also attached units, but each unit will not be divided by a property line, as you can see there. The previous concept for this area proposed lots reserved for a combination of commercial and multifamily uses, which also met with the community mixed use designation. The new concept removes the commercial use and provides a layout for the alley-loaded townhomes and the fourplex lots. This is a unique project in that Nampa has not been approached to provide this type of product before. Considering its vicinity to CWI campus and freeway access, it appears to be a good location for this type of product. The waiver request proposes a decrease in front here from 15 to 10, and the interior side yards from 5 to 0 to allow for the attached units. It also increases here, where there was none before, adds 3 feet and 5 feet on interior and end units. So the findings of facts in this case, it is within the city limits, zone GB2. This mix of uses is allowed and encouraged by the community mixed use zone in the comp plan. The minimum lot areas, width and depth comply with the standards for the GB2 zone. The landscaping plan has been reviewed. They revised it, and it was approved as revised. The conditions recommended by Planning and Zoning Commission for the layout of the preliminary plat are reflected in this revised rendering that she discussed with you, where they increased the setback to these properties as requested by the property owner here from 15 to 20 feet, and they enhanced the landscaping on that boundary. The requested waiver of setbacks decreases 2 setbacks and adds setbacks where none existed in the code currently. So the conditions of approval, should council choose to approve this application, are to provide a new development agreement to replace the old one, provide revised street names, provide building department information, comply with the engineering department comments, provide a memo, we have in there, provide a memo from the traffic engineer describing the impact on traffic. They did that. They only added an additional 29 units, and so it didn't have any impact on the traffic. And to provide a shared access agreement before the final plat can be signed. And any other conditions that council sees fit to add at this time. So again, the requested action from you tonight is the approval of the development agreement modification and the waiver for the setbacks. I will stand for any questions.
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
Christie, just a question as far as on the setbacks. I can see the proposed setback on the front being 10 feet. What about the side street setbacks? Is it 10 feet as well?
These are the ones that are being added to 5 feet.
So it'd be 5 feet?
So the request here, the external side setbacks for the end units where there was none specified would now be 5 feet.
Okay, and then, so as far as sidewalks, are there sidewalks, internal sidewalks proposed for the development?
Councilman Haverfield, there are sidewalks running.
Is
there
that in the
around-
10-foot setback, or is it out, is it in the road right-of-way
It's
setback?
probably in the road right of way.
So it'd be 10 feet of lawn minimum, and 5 feet of or I guess that's what you were asking for, was 5 feet of lawn on the side streets then. Okay, and then the sidewalks, the width of the drive lanes, are they 24 feet, 25?
These ones or these ones?
No, that's the alley side.
Right.
Well, I know what those are because they told me, but as far as the main streets, the public access.
Those are going to be our standard street width for local streets, that 38 feet.
Okay,
So they'll be built to city standards for public right of way.
okay, so they're wider. And then the hammerhead turns would be, I guess, at the, as they come into the development, so they can turn around or they can make their way through. Is this a phased development in the first part? So that, or is that the whole phase one, what we're seeing there?
Councilman Haverfield, so Lost River Townhomes is already developing, and it's developing out in phases.
Okay.
This, I believe, and we'll have to confirm that, will be one phase and we'll build.
Okay. So
That
the
may
two-
be something we need to talk
Yeah.
to them about.
the 2 access points is what I'm asking for.
Oh,
so-
okay. Right here.
Right, so they'll be both developed in the first phase.
We'll have to confirm that with.
Well, it depends on the number of units they want to develop, but if I believe it's over 35, then they're going to have 2, something to that effect.
Yeah, fire department code.
Right.
Requires that, yes.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Levi.
Thank you, Mayor. Christie, If I remember correctly, I read in the new development agreement, and let me back up just a moment. Thank you for putting the allowable uses in the GB2 because it made it just really easy to go back and forth, so I appreciate that. But I thought I read in the new development agreement that there were certain allowable uses that they will not be able to put in the area, correct? Am I reading the wrong one? I'm
well,
trying to scroll.
Oh, no, that's
through.
fine. We do in the next
Is the
hearing
next
coming
one?
up.
Okay,
There's a
thank you.
list of ones that
No
will be
wonder I couldn't
prohibited.
find them. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Are there any additional questions for Christy? Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
So this is a public hearing, and actually, we don't have anyone signed up to speak in support of or in opposition to this. Is there anyone here this evening that had intended to speak that did not get signed up? Okay, so seeing none, I would like to give our applicant an opportunity to come back and answer any questions that you just heard during this staff report. I know that was quick because there was no one here to testify. So do you have any closing comments? And then I think there was a question that had been asked that we'd like to clarify.
Thank
So-
you, Madam Mayor. I don't have any closing comments. I think as far as the question that was asked, we are planning to phase the development. So the plan would be to do the western half first, and then the second half would be the eastern portion. And
Okay.
we would comply with the fire department's requirements to have 2 points of access if it's over I think it's 30 or 35, whatever.
Yeah, something to that
requirement
effect.
is.
So I was just wanted that clarification. And then, is there sewer available for this development?
Yes, we'll be hooking up to city services.
Okay, so it's been taken care of as far as the allocations there for it?
Yes.
All right. And then the houses in the back, then the single-family residences that'll be built, the average size of those lots will be how big? Is it 8.5, so I guess I can do the math.
Councilman Haverfield, I don't know that off the top of my head, but I think that's probably about right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And with that, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, council discussion.
I'll tell you what, this sure would be a nice gated senior community if you could make it that. That's a great area.
Make it a requirement.
I know.
Still be great.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
fellow council members, I move that we modify the First Amendment to the Development Agreement as presented with all the verbiage in our packet.
Second.
Conditions.
Second.
With conditions.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Thank you. And I think we're done with that one. So we'll move on to item number 6.2 on the agenda. And this is an action item. Also, this is a development agreement zoning map amendment from RS6 to residential professional RP at 1324 11th Avenue South. This is a .24 acre or 10,500 square foot portion. I'm not going to read all the legal language on this, but it is at the location of 1324 11th Avenue South for Dina and Jason Baker for a legal office. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval subject to a development agreement to prohibit any of the otherwise allowed RP zone permitted uses determined by the commission not to be compatible with the adjoining single-family residential land uses, as well as prohibiting all otherwise allowed conditional uses in the RP zone. Other than that, they did recommend approval. So is our applicant here with us this evening? Hi. So thank you for coming forward and stating your name and your address.
Sure. My
Thank
name
you.
is, Madam Mayor and esteemed council members, my name is Dina Baker. I'm here with my husband Jason Baker, and together we have applied for a rezone of our property at 1324 11th Avenue South here in Nampa, and that is my residential address as well.
Wonderful. Would you like to tell us, do you have something more that you'd like to tell council so that they can?
I would just like to share that our property, and I know this is probably already known by the council members, but this particular property is bordered by commercial property to the back of our property or the east side of the property. Those offices are in commercial buildings that are on 12th Street. We're on 11th Street, so we're on the corner of 14th and 11th, which is directly behind and catty corner to the Hasbrook House. So we're a corner lot, and we are bordered by residential on one side, and then to the back, like I said, we are bordered by commercial. So the property itself, I think, or I believe, would make a perfect transition between the two zonings to allow for residential professional, where I would operate my law office out of the building. It is about a 3,200 square feet, I want to say. I'm not positive on that. Square foot building. We would anticipate living there, but we would also run the office out of it. It would always be a small office. I have no desire to make it large by any means. I've practiced for about 21 years now, and I don't want to get big. I like staying small. So it's just would be myself and my one partner in the firm who's also an attorney, and then we anticipate having perhaps 2 staff members. The most we would ever have would be 3. We really don't anticipate that there would ever be a need for more than perhaps 10 people in the building at any given time. And I would stand for any questions of the council.
Mayor Klein, I've driven by your properties a lot, going to work and back home again, and I've admired the building. So
Thank you.
Kudos to you for this approach. In fact, you had a truck parked in front of it for the longest time that I just kept thinking I should stop and ask if it's available, but you must have sold it. But you have, it appears in the packet, you have adequate room to be able to provide parking, off-street parking for your employees and public access.
Currently, as far as the street parking on 14th and 11th, I mean, it would accommodate about 7 vehicles, which we don't anticipate ever having more than that. But the property itself would provide for off-street parking. It doesn't currently have that, but there is room on both the south side of the property as well as the east side of the property that is the alleyway that would allow for the addition of anywhere it looks like between 4 and 6 additional parking spots if needed.
Yeah, that'd just be a requirement for the use.
Absolutely.
And then obviously a residential professional, you plan on living there, so you satisfy that requirement as well.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Mayor, I just have a question on
the applicant?
legal, no, not for the applicant.
Okay, so thank you so much.
Participate any further if
Thank
I
you.
have to recuse myself.
Okay, so we'll move to that. I just wanted to make sure that the applicant finished, and then, Councilman.
Yeah, I had meant to talk to you before the meeting, but Lifeline's right behind it, and not owner, but as director of Lifeline affected, we were notified. I didn't give any input, and I didn't know what your advice is for participating in this public hearing.
Mayor, Councilman Hogaboom, I don't see any particular way in which you could be personally, or the entity could be benefited by this. If you feel uncomfortable participating, then you can recuse yourself from the remainder of the conversation. But I don't see a specific conflict.
Okay, that's fine. All right.
Thank you. Okay, and for the applicant, I think you just saw the other one ahead of us, that you will have the opportunity to come back after the staff report and any public comments. You'll get to come back and finish. Thank you. So let's see. So Christy, this is you again, okay?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, Norm is off this evening, so I will be covering for him. He did this for planning and zoning, so I will try to do it justice here. So the action requested from you tonight is approval or denial of the rezone from RS6 to RP at this location. As stated by the applicant, this request is to operate a law office and live on the property. Zoning map amendments must be reasonably necessary in the interest of the public and further promote the purpose of zoning and agree with the adopted comprehensive plan for the neighborhood. The property is located on a 10,500 square foot lot and is currently zoned RS6. The surrounding uses are single-family residential on the north and west sides, RP on the south and east sides, and BC is not bordering it, but it is near. The comprehensive plan calls for medium-density residential on that particular lot. However, it is immediately adjacent to a commercial designation that is across the alley to the east. So according to Nampa City Code, the mapped boundary between two adjoining land use designations is considered flexible and may be interpreted as being stretchable to include the abutting parcels in the direction of either designation. Two rezones from RS6 to BC have been approved along 11th Avenue South, between 11th Avenue South and 14th Street South. If approved, this parcel would become the third area to be zoned commercial and allow for professional uses to the west of the alley. Uh-oh, skipped a page, sorry. Okay. So further, there are utilities available. Obviously, this isn't necessarily an expansion, but there are utilities available, and there is access via a driveway on 14th Street South and sidewalk from 11th Avenue South. There's also access off of the alleyway here and to the area in front of the garage. So potentially, the rezone could influence the adjoining single-family residential property owners by reason of the additional traffic that it might bring to the neighborhood that is generated by the legal office clients. No written correspondence was received from any of the area property owners, residents, or business owners in regards to this proposal prior to the public hearing. So Norm wanted to make sure that we had a couple of different ways to look at this. So he says, one could argue that the requested rezone to RP is it an inappropriate encroachment of the existing RP zoning along both sides of 12th Avenue South and further west into the older established single-family residential area. Under this interpretation, the requested zoning map amendment would not comply with the existing medium-density residential comprehensive plan designation, and the general commercial designation would not be considered stretchable to include this area. Or, one could argue that the requested rezone to RP is an appropriate extension of the existing RP zoning along both sides of 12th Avenue South and further west. Under this interpretation, the requested zoning map amendment complies with the general commercial designation under the stretchable allowance as provided for on the comprehensive plan future land use map. The commission has recommended approval under the second option, subject to a development agreement. So the recommended findings in this case, the rezone of the subject property to RP is reasonably necessary in order to allow the applicant to utilize the home for their legal practice. The rezone of the subject property to RP is in the interest of the property owner and is interpreted to conform to the adopted comprehensive plan designation for general commercial under the stretchable allowance. The proposed legal practice use on the subject property will be reasonably compatible with the existing commercial offices already established along 11th Avenue South and on 12th Avenue South, of course. Section 1025 allows a rezone or zoning amendment application to be processed in connection with the execution of a development agreement. Through such agreements, a property owner or developer may make written commitments concerning the use or development of a subject parcel in exchange for the change of zoning requested. Commitments made under such agreements are in addition to the regulations provided in the zoning district by ordinance and are established to ensure compatibility of the resulting land uses with the surrounding area. A development agreement could be used to prohibit any of the otherwise allowed RP zone permitted uses felt by the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council not to be compatible with the adjoining single-family residential uses. So he went ahead and listed out the prohibited uses that would be in the development agreement just to make sure that we kept the character of the neighborhood. Should council determine that the development agreement outlines prohibited uses, this may be the list that you would consider. So if you accept the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation to approve the zoning map amendment from RS6 to RP, the following conditions of approval were recommended. establishment of a development agreement to prohibit otherwise allowed RP zone uses. And the building department will require permits, of course, if there are any improvements made. They'll have to put in a handicapped ramp, restrooms, those kinds of things. So they will be required to get a building permit. And any others that you would see fit to impose. So I will stand for any questions.
Could I ask a couple questions real quickly?
Sure.
So is there a reason why we wouldn't go ahead and say what the allowable use is and narrowly define that rather than trying to list all of the others that don't apply? Because I would think it would be safer just to say the allowable use is this and nothing else. And then I have another question, and that is, under the recommended conditions of approval, where it is required that they be converted from residential to commercial, there's the potential of changing that from a residential-looking property now to a commercial-looking property, whereas its current use is very compatible with the neighborhood. So if we require ramps and parking, that's where you lose that neighborhood piece to it. And so, but that is required, correct? If they're going to use it commercially, they're required. And so is there guidance that we can have? Because if you start adding an ADA ramp and taking the grass out, you add parking spots, you've changed the nature of the neighborhood.
So, Mayor.
Even though the use, it may work, right?
Yeah, so Mayor, when we convert a building to invite the public in, we
Right,
have to meet all those ADA
Right.
requirements, which would require a ramp and handicap parking, paved handicap parking with access to that ramp. There's lots of residential homes that have ramps, so the ramp wouldn't necessarily change it. The paved parking area may. They would only be required to provide paved parking for maybe 1 or 2 spaces, so you'd have a handicap space and then another one if you guys determined that, you wanted to limit it to what the minimum in the code is, and then everything else remained the same. You're certainly welcome to do that. Our minimum code for that size of a building would probably be 1 regular space and 1 ADA space. So there's ways to kind of work within those requirements. As far as the development agreement goes, development agreements are not regulated by state code as far as what they're required to say necessarily. So it's entirely up to you to determine how you want those specifications to read in that development agreement. If you choose to designate it just to this specific use, that's a discussion that you guys can have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Levi.
Thank you, Mayor. You already asked 2 of my questions, made it easy for me. So the other thing I just want to double check on, that I'm understanding this correctly in the middle of your first bullet, as well as prohibiting all stated conditional uses for the RP zone. So as I'm looking at the conditional uses here, if we were to grant the rezone, they could not come back and request a conditional use permit.
Councilwoman Levi, I'm not familiar with the list that you're looking at, but that appears to be, exactly how that's stated, that it would not allow for the conditional uses. Conditional uses by definition are allowable uses that we then place additional conditions onto. So that would remove their ability to be able to do that.
And if the property in the future sells, those conditions stay with it, with the property.
The development agreement does stay with the property.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions? Okay, so seeing none, this would be the opportunity for applicant. Well, actually, I'll open the public hearing. This is a public hearing, and at this time, we do not have anyone other than our applicant that has signed up, to testify. Is there anyone here that had intended to testify that did not sign up? Okay, seeing none, this would be an opportunity for our applicant to come back and provide any response.
Thank you. The only thing that I would add to the comments that have already been made, unless anyone has any additional questions, is that I appreciated the comment about trying to maintain the current look of the property so that it's consistent with the surrounding properties. This is a beautiful home that I am in love with. I can tell you that. It was built in 1918, and I've been able, from surrounding neighbors, to kind of get some more of the history about the property, and I absolutely love this house. the intention is that when converted to an office, we would try to keep that character of that property the same just as much as we possibly could. I understand that we'd have to have any signage for the property or anything like that approved by the city before we would put that in, but my intention at this point would be to make sure that that itself even is consistent with the time period in which the house was built. It isn't our desire to add anything that really is commercial in nature. I understand that we have ADA compliance requirements that have to be met, but to the extent that we can do that in a way that doesn't really change the look of the property, we would very much want to do that. I love the house the way that it is, and I understand the need to make it wheelchair accessible, but I think it could definitely be done in a way that would maintain the character of the property.
So could I ask, would you be, are you thinking of then adding the parking behind your fenced area to where you don't change the front, or you?
What we were looking, in this particular view is prior to the fence being installed. There's currently a fence that runs on the south side of the property that you saw in the previous picture, but we have discussed either putting a couple of spaces, we could put a couple of spaces behind where that fence is, or just move the fence a little bit further back, but make it far enough back that it doesn't really affect the view from the front, so that we would want to avoid putting any kind of parking spot right in front of the property. We try to make it as far away as we could from the 11th Street part of the property. But there also is room, you can see the detached garage, and there's room just behind that as well. If it's permitted for individuals to access the property from the back, there's plenty of room back there. You can't see behind the garage, but behind it is just there's a number of peach trees that are currently in there. Well, I'd hate to remove them. It's certainly an area that could be converted to a couple of parking spots if necessary. And that would probably be the most ideal in terms of not affecting how the property looks currently.
Thank you. Council?
Mayor, Council, I forgot to ask a question about sidewalks. I guess that would be for staff. So if anybody has any more questions for the applicant.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I guess depending on where the parking would be, so we have sidewalks further down 14th, surrounding Lifeline. And then the sidewalks stop at the alleyway, and then they don't continue here, obviously. You just see the gutter and then the fence line up. But I guess the handicap parking access would have to require some sort of sidewalk access, unless the parking for clients were in that back and they had access to the back of the house.
Yeah, Councilman Hochboom, we would work very closely with them on the site plan for that. They do have to provide access to the right-of-way. So from the handicapped space to the building and from the building to the right-of-way, they have to provide some sort of ADA access. So if that means that they have to install a short section of sidewalk to get back out to the connection on the other side, then they may have to do that. We would have to take a really close look at that site plan and figure out by building code what those connections might be to have maybe the least impact on them and on the property.
So I have another question, and because I know Patrick's here, from a building perspective, is the parking from the back alley an allowable option to where they access rather than having to put parking in front?
Mayor, I believe as long as they provide an appropriate graded access, like so that they're not going up too steep of an incline to the property, that they can provide the parking anywhere on the lot as long as they provide the connection.
Okay.
Is that correct? Okay.
Are there any other questions before we close public hearing? Go ahead.
Mayor, Christie, are we able to specify that the parking goes to the back?
Councilwoman Levi, yes. However, we haven't had a chance to do a measured site plan yet to see what will fit where. So it would kind of depend on once we finally get out there and figure out how that's going to work. If the designated place that you say it has to go, may or may not be the appropriate dimensions for an ADA space or the kinds of things that are required by building code.
That makes it difficult to make a decision this evening because that's something that I think is going to be important. So you don't know at this time if it's even allowable to achieve what we're going to require within this space?
If you say specifically where it
The back
has
of the
to go,
property?
yeah, then that might be a little bit difficult.
At the back of the property, access and
Well, okay, so what are we talking about exactly? So we're
accessing
talking
it
about
from the
in
back rather
here.
than the front.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on if, they could provide, it looks from this picture, and I'm sorry that we don't have a better aerial of this, but it looks like there could possibly be a connection that would go back there, but to be able to look at it from the top and actually dimension out a site plan, I would hate to guess.
So Mayor, just educate me, and this may be legal. So if we require that in part of the development agreement tonight, then if that does not work from a measurement standpoint, what would be the, what would happen? Would it come back before us or not?
So, Councilman Brunner, the other area here, and you're looking at it from over here, so I won't make you turn around.
Yeah, my neck's
There-
stiff. Yeah.
There is, there is space here, which is what she was talking about, moving this fence a little bit.
But I'm talking about if we require from the back entrance for the ADA compliancy. I said, if we put that in what we state tonight, then what is the process if the measurements do not work?
Development agreement modification.
And that is just done by,
If you're that specific, then we
Okay.
have to come back and modify.
okay. And I'd be fine with that. I'm just wondering what the process is, okay?
I don't. He didn't give me one, sorry. Google.
Gotta get a Google satellite.
Thank you, Daniel. I think it's important to us. I will just say from my perspective, you have a beautiful home. It's lovely. There's the respect out of the other neighbors to maintain that historical nature of 11th Avenue and not change that from a residential to commercial facing 11th. And so in my mind, we appreciate small businesses and the opportunity to work out of your home. And so this is just my opinion, which I usually don't even vote because it's really up to these guys.
Mayor Kling.
But yes,
If I can just help a little bit with the conversation, I have a similar setup for an architectural practice on the corner of 16th and 3rd Street. The most cost-effective way to provide the parking was off the alley, and a ramp was put into the back door. So, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, and depending on what level of what they want to show there as far as where those 3 parking spaces would be, it's pretty simple and straightforward just to do it that way. To mandate it, I'm not sure that I'm in support of that so much because it is a very small parking area. They already can park one in the garage, one outside of it, and a tandem as you approach it. So they pretty much have what they are required. So an additional space off of the south side of the property would be easy to install. It's just providing the ramp up to either the backside or a new door cut in the south side of the building. I mean, we'll let the applicant choose how they want to lay out the floor plan for their practice there on the lower level. I'm in support of this. I don't have any problems with it, and I assume really all they're looking for is just the zoning map amendment to RP, and which I'm more than happy to grant tonight without a whole lot of conditions being added, because they have to work with the building department and with planning and zoning to provide the required parking.
and I
So-
think it's in keeping with their intent. I think the key is, there's 2 questions that come up, is that if the property sells, what changes? Because what someone could come in with would be a question, and then maintaining the integrity of the front-facing residential side. So with that intent, I mean, so those are those questions that, Councilwoman Levi, do you have more comment, or is that what you were thinking?
That's what I was thinking, and going back to what Councilman Haverfield was saying, and I was going to bring out, tonight our action is requested is to develop the development agreement for the zoning map amendment. So if we go ahead and we approve that, then the parking, et cetera, that stays in planning and zoning, and you guys take care of it, and then we never see what happens. Is the deal? But you know our intent.
Madam Mayor, we haven't closed public hearing yet, have we?
We have not, but it's, yes, we are having discussion, I'm sorry, but it's questions that are coming forth for either the applicant or Christie. So if there are no further questions for the applicant, we could,
I'll answer hers.
okay, and then we'll close public hearing.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Levi, yes, that is right. We would take whatever your recommendations are tonight, whatever you set forth in the development agreement, whatever conditions you place on that rezone, and I would use that in reviewing their building permit, and no, you would not see it again.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions for the applicant? No, and excuse me, I left it open because I was referencing to the applicant, so I went ahead and left it open longer, but if,
Mayor.
I think we can go ahead and talk to staff, so I'd stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so now we can still have the discussion with staff, so in answer to the questions.
So, Mayor Patrick just mentioned, you could make a general statement about restricting parking to the side or rear of the lot, and then we could just work within those parameters if that met your needs.
Okay.
Mayor Kling will make a motion. The zoning map amendment from R6 to RP at 1324 11th Avenue South for Dina M. Baker for legal office, and with conditions of approval. And regarding the parking, I don't want to restrict them, but side and the back, if it's possible. How's that?
So which, I guess the question would be, the conditions of approval, because there were a lot in there, and with kind of redacting the allowable uses within the RP zone. So are you saying that you fully agree with what was recommended, or are you going to narrow it to the development agreement being a single use, or are you going to go back to the RP zone uses that they extract?
We're only talking about the RP zone right now. The uses are permitted through that. Now, if the RP zone equals parking, then that's another issue that I don't want to get into with that. Or should we have to? I guess that's it.
I'll second your motion, Victor.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we can have discussion around that. So I think the concern is, what are we,
Sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Mayor.
so
I
would you
think-
like to-
So if there's more clarification, I don't know if the motion included the list. There was that long list that you provided, and certain things were highlighted that are generally allowed in the RP. So while we're permitting the motions to accept the RP, there's, I don't know how many, did you have like a dozen things highlighted in there? We're explicitly saying within the RP, we would
I
not
think
include
those will be determined based on the second part of this, which is the development agreement with the claimant, right?
no,
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 that's what we're
they would not be. And I will say right here, the permitted uses within the RP zone, and we have highlighted the areas that we're saying would not be allowed. But what is not highlighted is a shelter or a temporary home for caring or lodging. So to me, that is not the appropriate use to operate a shelter in the middle of a residential area. And I don't think that's the intent of the applicant. So the question is, if they sell, where does it go? Have we just approved a shelter in the midst of a residential area because we did not pull that out of this? And that's the danger and the concern I have, is if we are trying to pull allowable uses out of an existing zone and then we don't catch them, then what we've done is we've allowed a permitted use unintentionally.
Yeah. So Mayor, even just as an example, could an Airbnb go in there without any further?
I'm not sure.
Well,
I'm just curious. I mean,
so Councilman Bruner, an Airbnb would essentially be a boarding house
I
under
know.
our definition for scheduled uses. And those are allowed in some residential zones anyway. So I don't, if the boarding houses, which I believe it is an allowed use in the RP zone, I don't know right off the top of my head, but yeah, then it would continue to be allowed.
Mayor, if I might answer the question, the CUP states a bed and breakfast, but under the conditions of approval, which I don't believe was in the motion, if we accept the conditions of approval, it says not to be, let's see, where is it? I thought it stated that not to, whatever you showed us up there about not using the CUPs. So that should take it out of the equation if we approve that, right?
Yeah, according to that statement.
Madam
If
Mayor,
it-
I understood, Madam Mayor, I understood that I second a motion for Victor with the conditions of approval that are stated in our packet. And I'd like to get a vote on that.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not ready. So we're going to pause on that because this, for example, we have highlighted a school, academic, vocational, or commercial, but we did not take out a school that's public or nonprofit. We did not take out a shelter. And so I think the council needs to really be thinking about the permitted uses. If this sells, then it says a shelter would be allowed there, a school would be allowed there. And so my concern is, I don't know if we did our due diligence in taking out what they've recommended. You've got extra uses in there that I don't think are intended. And so I want to make sure that we do not.
So Mayor, what's
approve-
an
Okay,
alternative?
so-
How do we cover
okay.
everything though, is
So
my
can I,
concern.
I'm sorry, can I amend and say that in this zone, the only approval will be to this business only? Any other business or entity or would not be recommended at that time? How's that?
I think it's a good motion. So my question for legal is that, well, two things. It would require Councilman Skog to agree to your amended motion. And then is it possible that we do that? And then if so, if they sold, could they come back for a revision on the development agreement if they had a different use that they wanted to use, to amend the development agreement?
Madam Mayor, I believe it's, would be appropriate. To modify it in the future would require, if it limits it to just that one use, to modify, to have a different use would require a DA modification. But yeah, I can think of no particular reason why it has to be negative rather than affirmative as to the specific use.
So if I understand correctly, if Councilman Skog agrees to your amended motion, we would be approving their request. The development agreement would be, it would be for the stated use, which is a law office.
Correct.
And then if in the future they needed to change that, they could come back to revise their development agreement for an amended use, but it would be a specific approval for that use.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Point of clarification, can it be, instead of just for an attorney, can it be a professional office that you're limiting it to? Say an architect wanted to buy that building.
Fine, too.
Or an accountant, or somebody else. That's a professional use.
Yeah. See, we just keep it the way it is for right now.
Yeah, so
we
what
call
would
the
be
vote?
I mean, as far as for another use, whether it's for like you decide to move one to your architectural office there and purchase, what would be there'd be too much hassle for you to come back and have a change and
So if they got the approval to have a professional office there and they were to move out of it, and it would be able to be sold for another professional use, then it would not be any change other than change of ownership is really what it comes down to. I mean, you don't have to get into a whole lot of extra effort.
yeah, there again, professional offices can be a gamut of many things.
Right.
So I personally like Councilman Rodriguez's motion, and I realize it needs a second. If Councilman Skog is not up to wanting to second that, I will second it.
I just leave this lady alone, let her have her business and her
yeah.
property and quit restricting her so much.
Right.
So I won't second that motion, it's too
Okay, I will second it.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. And just to restate the motion, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the request and to the RP zone, and that with the condition that it is used for a legal office as she has requested. And then I believe the added piece was that parking be restricted to either the side or the back. Is that correct? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's been seconded. Okay, is there any further discussion?
For clarification, Mayor, then going forward, if they were to sell the building, sell the property, then the next property owner could come before this commission or council and request a change of use or whatever it might be. But it's basically, we're granting an RP zone by restricting it to a professional office. Was that the motion?
No.
To a law office.
To a law office. And why would that be important that it only be a law office, I guess is the question that I would have. I just need clarification on that.
I think more than anything, Councilman Haverfield, is to get this thing going so we can get her business, period.
Well, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I just don't, I'm just thinking that we're taking away the value of what they're investing in as well. And we're micromanaging something that I'm just not so, I'm not so happy about that. I want to see them get their business. I want them to see that, them get this approval. But there again, I think that we need to be reasonable in private property rights, and what we're just being a little heavy-handed here, I think.
Well, the reason we have zoning and that this is zoned what it is because part of this is protecting the investment of all the neighbors around there. This is a residential neighborhood. And so what I feel like we're doing is we're doing a good compromise because we're allowing them to protect their investment, which is a great investment, have the opportunity to do the business that they're requesting to do, but we're also protecting the neighborhood because it is a residential neighborhood. So to me, that is the role that we have, which is to protect the neighbors on that street in a residential neighborhood because it's facing residential, yet allowing the use as they've requested. And that all it does is, and if they sell, it actually provides them the opportunity to sell for exactly what they purchased for, which is their home,
Okay.
plus their business. It's just that we're saying that we're going to protect the rest of the neighborhood. And that's the motion and the second on the table is
So just to be clear then, if she were to close up her attorney's practice there and still wanted to live there, it's an RP zone, but she wants to move out, somebody else wants to move in just for a residential purpose, even though it's an RP zone, it doesn't have to be used for a business.
That's correct.
As long as that's the understanding of the motion.
That's my understanding.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Do we have a vote?
Roll call.
Hogaboom,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Skog,
No.
Brunner,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Okay, that's the conclusion. And I think we're done, and I think you've achieved what you had intended to achieve. So thank
Thanks.
you.
Mayor, can we take a 3-minute break? That's okay? Or,
If needed.
I can wait. Council's not jumping up at the, we can move
We do
forward.
have a long agenda, and if we need a break, we could do a break.
Let's take one.
Well, this is the last public hearing, right?
This is the last.
Yeah,
public
so
hearing.
before we move into, I
New
think our next
business?
discussion's gonna be long, next
Okay.
few, so. We'll take a
We'll
little
take a
break.
5-minute break.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, so here's those two. And then-
On the handheld, do you think that's going to be long?
So, thank you.
Council, what do we need up?
Okay. So we're ready for action item 5.1 under new business. And this is an action item to authorize facilities to sign a change order for the demolition of the bank drive through canopy at the Nampa Development Services Building.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so as we're quick on that, I have to say, I asked Patrick to bring that forward for full transparency and because it's a budget item. But you guys are good, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Clarification on that is, there's no money out of the general budget that's going towards this. This is all in your funds, correct?
Mayor and Councilman Haverfield, that's correct. It will all be coming out of the original budgeted funds out of the Building Safety Reserve Fund.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
That would have been an important clarification for you to make before you made your motion.
Well, it said that in the packet.
It's in the
Well,
packet.
okay.
And we're saving money over with the
I
alternative.
want the public to know.
So as long as you read the packet, you're good. Okay.
Maybe we need another break.
Unless there is further discussion, we'll stand for roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Patrick, thank you for hanging around for that. Item 5.2 on the agenda is an action item. This is the canvass of votes from the November 5 election. Debbie Rosen.
We just have to have a motion to approve that the.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
So item 5.3 on the agenda is an action item, and this is the council discussion on whether to recommend the city attorney draft an ordinance prohibiting the use of electronic devices while operating motor vehicles in the city of Nampa. So I think I would like to, I obviously have an opinion, but Councilman Skog, did you want to say anything on this issue this evening?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And that's traditional, whoever brings the motion or wants it out here to start the talk. So I was opposed to this type of thing until about 2 weeks ago. I was walking out of the donut shop, happy as could be, and a lady had her cell phone up on top of her steering wheel and about ran me over. Now, not a year or so ago, that same thing happened to me at a red light. Somebody blew a red light, cell phone up on top of the steering wheel. I was going through on a green light, just about got hit, honked my horn, and the driver never even looked left or right, just kept on going full speed at 7th and 12th. And I represent a lot of people that get hit by people who are texting and driving, and that's already prohibited. But I'm seeing people, when I go down the freeway, my wife and I have gotten in the habit of counting, in the slow lane, people are using their handheld electronic devices, whether they're texting or watching movies, but they're holding them in their hands, not paying attention, swerving the lanes. So I'm in favor of this prohibition as an infraction for the city of Nampa to act on it. I think there could be discussion of, well, let's put it off, see what the others do, see what Ada County does. It's within our power to get this done and moving. You can come back and modify it to be uniform later. It's just a matter of question of what exceptions do you want in there? And we have examples of what those are. Police and fire, maybe at a stoplight if you're stopped, fine. So I'd like to hear what your thoughts are.
Madam Mayor, just reply, Meridian is, this is official, Meridian has passed this, correct?
It's
This
not in
ordinance.
effect yet.
And so, I mean, I am in favor of this ordinance as far as passing, as long as it can be enforced, number one, which may be the chief coming up. Number two, that we're consistent with the municipalities in our area. I realize Caldwell has not moved on this, Meridian has. I read through the Meridian. I would be fine with what Meridian, but I think it's important for the citizens that are traveling back and forth through different municipalities that we're consistent with how this is going to be enforced. So,
Mayor Kling.
Yes.
Chief Huff, could you come up for a second so you can just explain how it's enforced? I mean, do you have to photograph someone using it, or how is it that you can enforce or prove that someone was?
Well, honestly, it's such a new law. I've read, I believe it was 4 cities in Idaho. I have their ordinances, and I would assume it would be like the texting, where you have to observe it going on. I guess my personal opinion right now would be to, and I know you said you'd rather put it on the books right now, but I would actually like to see, give it 6 or 8 months and see how some of these other cities are basically if the juice is worth the squeeze on it. I agree with Councilman Bruner that there's confusion on the laws right now. I mean, you can drive in Kenyon County with an open container of alcohol, but once you drive into Nampa city limits, you can't have an open container. So it needs to be, I would like to see it from the state legislatures where, you know, if they do adopt this, that it's the statewide. It's like it would be in, you know, Oregon. You can't text and drive. You can't have your hands on your cell phone. We do have a law in place right now, which is inattentive driving for that type of incident, you know, where you were almost hit in the parking lot. It's a lot easier burden to prove. I don't have to have somebody admit that, you know, if I wasn't there to watch the accident happen, or, you know, we didn't have a witness, I can just, you know, somebody's looking down, changing the radio station and doesn't have enough time to stop and, you know, rear ends a car or hits a car, you know, I can write them for the inattentive. I brought some stats, specifically dealing with the texting when driving. Honestly, we haven't enforced that very much this year. In 2019, year to date, as of this afternoon, we've only written 13 tickets for texting while driving in the city of Nampa. And then you come to following too close, or we have written 259 tickets, and inattentive or careless driving, we've written 230 tickets. Now, a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, but a good majority of the time, if you write them for the inattentive driving and let's say somebody rear ends somebody, the judge has the discretion to drop that from a misdemeanor down to an infraction for following too close. And a lot of times that'll happen. Again, you know, the person might tell us this is what happened. We write the report for the careless or inattentive driving, and then when it comes to court, you know, the judge finds that it was a lesser offense, which would be the infraction. Drops it from the misdemeanor to the infraction. So, I guess coming full circle, a long story, my recommendation would be see Meridians takes effect officially on January 1st. Maybe look at it in May or June of this year, and we'll stay in good contact with the city of Meridian, working with our legislatures, letting them know, you know, that, I mean, you bring up valid points, but where maybe it can be a statewide thing, where it's not just the city of Nampa versus Caldwell has a different one, you know, in the city of Wilder. Even if it was a Kenyon County thing right now, I think it would be a better law for the books.
So, Mayor, if I may, just real quick. So I'm just, clarification, this is just an example.
Sure.
So for inattentive driving, can Councilman Skog, for instance, could he have reported a license plate and that person?
There's a lot of factors that will go with it, yes, but
Or would
if
he
it
had
was
to
a
have been
private
hit?
you know,
Okay.
private parking lot or something like that.
Okay.
So I mean, we would make contact with the driver. I wouldn't say we'd write a ticket, but yeah, that's a misdemeanor. So somebody else can, you know, call in and say, hey, I witnessed this person, you know, driving inattentively. That Councilman Skog would have to sign the citation as the witnessing offender on that. And a lot of times folks don't want to do that, or they don't want to follow through. We do get a lot of phone calls from people saying, hey, there's somebody driving down, you know, the boulevard or whatever, texting while driving or weaving in their lane. They want to remain anonymous. Just bring it to our attention. And then we obviously do an area check, and if we find that person, then we make contact with them.
And for Councilman Bruner's, what about golf carts? I mean, inattentive driving in golf carts.
Well, let that one rest.
Okay.
Councilwoman Levi.
Thank you. Because I'm one of those kind of, let's go to the foundation and the root of things and see what they say. So I took the privilege of looking up in the DMV Idaho handbook, and under cell phones, which is an area that it talks about distracted driving, what is distracted driving? And it's more of an educational piece, but I found this very interesting. It specifically lists cell phones, and it says, in Idaho, reading, writing, sending, or receiving of written communication, text messaging while driving is illegal and considered an infraction. So it's already covered and it's taken care of there. And then I followed that up and I spoke with Corporal Freiberghauser, I hope I said that right, at the DMV. He used to be a traffic officer, but he's been off of that for, I think he said 10 years. And he said that when you sign that, it's now a digital type thing, but when you sign that to get your driver's license, it implies that you will follow the rules of the road. So just kind of throwing that out there. And I do agree with Chief. I kind of want to take that wait and see kind of what happens in the future with some of our surrounding areas that are putting this into effect.
Mayor Glean.
Yes.
Okay, so Chief, I have a couple of situations here. Number one, inattentive driving is when a person's not inattentively driving. That involves a lot of issues, eating, drinking,
Changing
not,
the radio station.
right, not paying attention to what you're doing. So, and that is the misdemeanor. That can be, you can have a complainant sign on the summons for that, correct? All right. So if you were continue with an ordinance for the city of Nampa, the only one that can enforce that is you.
Correct.
We, the community, cannot have, cannot,
That would be an infraction.
right. So unless you saw it, you could not act on our information as citizens.
After the fact, like if you called in, you know, and saw somebody driving or, you know, texting or driving or you're, that would be correct.
Yeah, but the good catch-all is this. Under the inattentive driving, which is a misdemeanor, you could act on that.
Yes.
Correct? All right. So back to Councilwoman Levi's statement, is that we have it on the books already, and are we trying to figure out a way where texting and hands-free is a non-avoidable kind of a situation that everybody does, but if we charge them with a misdemeanor, it actually, that money goes to the state and does not come to us. In the ordinance, that money is given to the city, correct?
I'm not sure which percentage comes off of the city ordinance back, but yes,
Right,
some of
right,
it does come back.
Right, it comes back to us. So I just want to make that
Yes.
clarification.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you all have valid points, you know, and everybody's pretty opinionated on this, you know, one way or the other. I guess just, I would hate to put something on an ordinance in place that we may have to go back and, you know, tweak in a couple months, or I just don't know right now would be the wisest time, I guess, for the city to put that on there. I just think that if it would do us good to wait for a few months and see how it goes. The legislative session is just starting, and like I said, you know, we've been talking to the legislatures to some extent. We've had conversations with other police departments across the state. I believe it was Idaho Falls has it on the books, and there seems to be about the clearest that I could see. However, there's all, you know, looking at it my way, my pickup doesn't have Bluetooth, so they recommend that you can talk on the phone. Well, you're still distracted while you're talking on the phone. So, I mean, you can play both sides of it, but it's like, well, so this guy that's driving the car that has Bluetooth, he can talk on the phone as long as he's on Bluetooth. I can't, you know. I mean, there's a million different angles. So I would just like to see a lot of the angles addressed and before the city of Nampa actually puts something on the books that, again, you know, we've written 13 texting tickets, and I don't know the conviction rates of those or any of that. I didn't have the time to pull that. But that's not very many.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah. May I? Chief, what's your position if you were talking to the state legislature about handheld devices and driving?
I think I believe it was Councilman Bruner, that it needs to be a statewide, or, you know, at least the county. Again, you know, like the open container scenario I gave you, or if you're, you know, driving down the boulevard and you're leaving Caldwell, and then you're into Nampa, you know, and you're still on the same phone call, then all of a sudden now you've committed a crime. I think it needs to be consistency from city to city and county to county.
But if it's dangerous behavior and people are getting hurt from it, and I think we all believe people are getting
Right,
hurt
yeah,
from
and I
it,
can't argue with that.
why not be the leaders in our city and say, we're going to stop it now?
I mean, again, you bring up good points. I just don't know. Again, you know, I guess there's 4 other cities. I guess my counter to that would be, you know, that have just newly adopted that, and we have codes that are on the book right now that we can enforce. Again, coming back to the misdemeanors and the inattentive driving. I'm not saying that we shouldn't ever do it. I'm just saying maybe if we wait a couple of months and take a tactical pause and see how it works out for these other cities. And in a perfect world, I would like to see it again statewide, not just the city of Nampa.
I'd like a tactical attack by your enforcement team on the roads.
We're trying.
All right.
So I guess that's the question, is the ability to enforce. I will say that after Meridian adopted theirs, we put a Facebook poll up on our website and in Nextdoor, and 67% of the respondents on Facebook said yes. The question was, do you think the city of Nampa should ban a handheld cell phone use while driving? So 64% of our Facebook people said yes, 36 said no. Next door, 77% said yes, 19 said no, 3 were unsure. So, and that, I don't remember how long that was open. I think it was open for 2 weeks. So our citizens support it, it sounds like. I have heard, and I have to say I do support Chief Huff and his communication. I know of some entities that are actually looking at it, introducing it as a legislative priority at the state level. And so the concern that I've heard is when you move from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, it's very difficult for people to be knowing which jurisdiction enforces it, that it's a ordinance versus not. So when you're moving, and so I've heard the same thing and support your comments that if someone's going to bring it forward at the state level, it would be great because then at the state level, people across the state, it's consistent. If the state doesn't, then I think it needs to be a discussion at the county level so that people in Ada County may adopt it, Canyon County, but it would take all the municipalities and the county to be in agreement, to all do it together. I think we all agree that we need a safe environment. We need people to pay attention. So support that recommendation. I think the thought is giving it, since it's this long in the history of our community, to give it some time and let's see if it passes at the state level. That's my recommendation. But I agree with what you had said, but I guess at that, Council?
Yes, I staked out a position as it's been in the newspaper. So when they asked afterwards, so I said I don't support it, and I've tried to solicit a lot of feedback on Facebook, and I've gotten a lot of good dialogue. And there's been some misunderstanding because a lot of the pictures were showing people texting, and there's confusion that what we're saying is, should we outlaw texting? And then you're telling people there already is a texting ban. Oh, okay. Then is it like having a phone to your ear when you're driving? They're like, yeah, that's what we're saying. Some people, oh, no, well, I'm okay with that. Or some people were changed. And some are saying, no, I'm not okay with that. You shouldn't be allowed on that. And then my concern tonight, if we were prepared to move, was to at least allow, I don't want to embarrass my wife, but instructions from my wife. She gave me her feedback. And so we use our phone for GPS on the monitoring. And when I read what was in some of the other codes, that ordinances, it was a little bit confusing on what was allowed at a stop. And if it was a stop, if you weren't in a lane of traffic, some said it's okay if it's at a train stop. They were that specific, and others weren't that specific. The touch screen was only to activate and to turn off, but not to touch while in transit. And I just want to make sure you weren't going to ticket people if it's less invasive than turning your radio on and off. We're just talking about a tap. So even if you're doing, hey Siri, make sure my phone didn't activate. Sorry. All your phones, sorry. If you say, hey, that name, all right, you're good. If you have an Apple phone. And directions to McDonald's while you're in transit, that it'll come up, the different McDonald's options. You just got to tap one. And so it's already mounted. And it's right there. It's no different than hitting volume up or down. And all she had to do is tap McDonald's and then say go, and then it would route the directions there. That's the same as on the GPS, on the newer GPS coordinates that if there's options, like directions to Starbucks, 5 pop up, you still have to tap or you say directions to the address, in which case you're actually spending more time looking at the road and then trying to say, hey, Siri, 1324 12th Avenue instead of just, I just didn't want to criminalize someone tapping something that's already mounted. And so I was just prepared to maybe move along with supporting something if it was a tool that you could use, because your feedback's helpful. If someone can say they're not texting, they're just using their GPS, and I was just wondering if you need the tool to say, you know what, you had the phone in your hand when you're driving, and that's just zero tolerance. And we're, because it is a public safety issue, and on a societal level, we're getting too addicted to our gadgets while we're driving. And I think car manufacturers need to look into all the stuff that they do, the multi-sensory stuff that's going on. But so I just wanted to make sure that my wife isn't going to be deemed a criminal if she's just tapping. Some asked me too, is, they use their phone to play their music on their playlist, and all they're doing is just tapping their phone. And they'll do it at a stop sign. And I'm like, the police probably wouldn't see that. Would it get ticketed? They're like, you're way too optimistic in the police, especially if they think we're just trying to generate money and just try to pull more people over. And I wouldn't want to be the person who's saying, yeah, we're criminalizing that behavior. So I guess I'm kind of, my counsel would be I would want to see the state legislation do something, but the fact that some cities are like, it's okay at a train stop, not okay at a red light, but it is okay here, and it's okay to tap before you proceed to traffic, and then you could tap off, but you're not allowed to tap even if it's mounted. One person said if it was magnetically mounted, it could tap just to do the one tap activation. I just want to make sure we were at least preserving that. So I appreciate Councilman Scoggs. I know in your practice you deal with victims, and I don't dispute that there's victims. There's certain insurance agents that reached out to me when I kind of put out my position, and they were respectful, and they're like, Councilman Hogeboom, I'd like to visit with you. And inattentive driving is on the rise, and a lot of those behaviors I think you can punish as you observe them using your discretion, but some feel that on a societal level we just need to take sort of a zero tolerance policy and just say your gadget should not be in your hand when you're driving. This is where we're going. And I know some people are asking, what about your pet dog that's on your lap? What about, your Starbucks coffee while you're driving? Some said, should you even be a stick shift driver because you got your other hand off while you're, got 2 feet going? And there's all these concerns and data that shows there's risk involved in various behaviors. And I don't dispute that there's inattentive drivers that need to be dealt with. If you need more tools and you ask us for tools, I'd be prepared to support whatever tools that you say you need to make our streets safer to avoid things. And I'm also convinced that Councilman Scoggs sees behavior and is convinced. I think it carries some credibility to me because you were on the other side and now you're on this side. So a conversion has some, not to say your testimony is less forceful, but I think Councilman Scogg saying that candidly that you've moved over and shifted on this, it gave me some more to think about. And I think that this morning at breakfast, I asked one person what their thought was, and they had a friend who was hit by an inattentive driver who rear-ended someone at full speed, didn't see the stop. Don't know if they were texting or inattentive driving, it's already on the books, but he was saying we just need a zero tolerance. If someone has a phone in their hand, we just need to say no, because if that deters these accidents from happening, quadriplegic, lifelong injury because of this accident, there's a very emotional reaction saying we need to do whatever we can to make our streets safer. You're operating a piece of equipment that can be a lethal weapon when you're inattentive. And so if you're driving on our streets and roadways, we can designate certain behavior that needs to be required. So I support the spirit in which Councilman Scogg brings this to our attention. I also respect Chief Huff. I hope the state legislator can do something, but I do want to protect my wife from tapping just the one tap on the mount phone for the GPS purposes.
Just wait for the driverless cars, right?
Mayor Clay.
Yes. Sorry, that was my mouth.
I'm
done.
You got your sermon
What
ready
I'm,
for Sunday.
what I'm gonna, would like to see is I'm gonna support Councilman Scogg. I want this procedure to go forward so we can take a look at it, and then we'll go from there. But dropping it off right now, I don't think it's in the best interest of our community. So I think we should go forward with this until we come up with the ordinance and go from there, I guess. I mean, are you okay with that, Bruce, or?
Yeah, if anybody has more comments, I'll make a motion and let you do. As far as jurisdictions, we're already touching Meridian pretty much in many places. So if we're consistent with theirs, that covers a pretty large area. So I will make the motion and include a Mimi exception for your wife. I think those are good points that you brought up. So I would ask the council to move to direct the city attorney to make an ordinance consistent with the Meridian code that they just passed, but also make clear that there is additional exceptions for someone who is with the exceptions that you talked about, Councilman Hogeboom, at red lights, stopped at railroad crossings, perhaps stopped long in traffic for construction, if they're stopped.
And Mayor, Councilman Scogg, didn't Meridian have those some exceptions?
They do have some of the.
Yeah, I mean, I would not. Okay, I will go along with your motion, but I don't want it different than Meridian's.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be adding and adding and adding. So.
And then we'll have that chance to look at it, or you will when I'm.
Okay, I will second his motion.
It wasn't even done yet.
Didn't you make a motion?
No, that was my motion.
Oh,
But I thought you just said you weren't going to support his motion, that you seconded it.
no, I said I would support it as long as he wasn't adding anything different than what Meridian has.
Well,
These
we'll,
things are different than Meridian.
well, I'm adding the Mimi exception, God bless her. And we can tinker with that when it comes back.
Yeah,
before
and
us.
once the ordinance, we can revise. So is your motion to be what Meridian's ordinance reads or not?
Yes.
Okay, second.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
I'm going to go back to page 94 of the handbook, and many of the things that were listed tonight as far as distractions, it does list that those are distractions, turning on your radio, your dog not being in a carrier, eating while you're driving, etc. And I would like to see us promote personal responsibility instead of having to make a law on everything. And I'm sorry, I don't have my notes offhand. Excuse me just a minute. And I would also be interested to know what are the statistics for the number of text-related accidents compared to just accidents in general? And it could be somebody eating, somebody doing a traffic violation, whatever it might be. And then through this discussion, it also made me think of back in the historic, when we came over on the Mayflower, when people had these tiny little maps, and they had to be looking at them and figuring where they were going. They didn't have the luxury of a larger screen to look at. And there many times was just one person in the vehicle. So again, I go back to the fact that it's already there, and we need to promote personal responsibility instead of just getting heavy-handed over everything or deciding because it happened to us, now we need to decide to do something about it.
Thank you for your comments. And I more than likely won't vote on this because it doesn't usually come down to me, but I have to say. It could be. I appreciate and support what our police chief Huff's recommendation, because ultimately we can say we want an ordinance, but who has to enforce that? And what is our expectation of enforcement based on the available police force that we have and where we want their focus to be? And so I think that's something that we should never forget, that it's easy for us to say we want something, but somebody has to do the work of enforcement. And if it's the recommendation of our chief that we pause and let some other stuff come first, I support that. So,
Mayor Clay.
yes.
And I concur with your thoughts. I will have a hard time, well, I won't vote for the motion as it's presented. I think that it's important that we listen to the wise counsel of our chief, and I think that the expediency issue, it doesn't hurt to wait a little bit to get some counsel from other jurisdictions and to see what, to get the advantage of their thoughts as well. So I won't be supporting the motion as it's presented tonight.
Are we ready for roll call?
Was the Meridian ordinance provided? Because if the motion, your second, was based on the Meridian ordinance, I saw Haley in our packet.
Meridian was not in our packet.
So I don't know what all the details in the Meridian ordinance were, so I can't support the motion knowing that, because I can just go off anecdotal feedback from certain council members who voted no on that because of certain exceptions that were not allowed in that ordinance. And I haven't looked at the Meridian ordinance itself. It wasn't in our packet, so I just don't know exactly what the motion is.
It is that.
Yeah.
The motion is
Okay.
the Meridian. So with that,
I thought I'd sent you a copy.
You did. You sent a copy. It's not in the packet.
That's right. That's right. I looked at it initially. I don't recall the details in them. I'm sorry.
okay. Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
No.
Levi?
No.
Haverfield?
No.
Brunner?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
I
Mayor?
guess I am
There you go.
voting. So, with all respect, Bruce, I fully respect where you're going, and I agree that we need to, but I'm going to vote no, because I think that we need to get the information together, and we need to be prepared. I hate to spend time putting something together when I think it needs to be a statewide initiative or countywide initiative, and we will follow up. I'm committed to following up. We'll see where this goes, because I know the people that are going to introduce it at the state for this coming session. And if it doesn't pass at that time, I'll visit with the other mayors and the county, and we'll move forward in that direction. So it won't be dropped, it's my commitment, but it just won't be implemented at the individual city level yet. So, we are now ready for action item 5.5. So this is the first reading of the ordinance to annex 3 subdivisions from an underlying irrigation district into the Nampa Municipal Irrigation District. It is requested to pass this under suspension of rules and also the authorize the summary of publication to be passed with action item 5.5.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, annexing a portion of the underlying irrigation district into the municipal irrigation district of the City of Nampa, County of Canyon, Idaho, and changing the boundaries thereof, and directing the city engineer to alter the use and area map accordingly.
Mayor Kling, I'd make the motion to pass the preceding ordinance as read under suspension of rules, and also to include the publication, summary of publication.
Thank you, well said.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 5.7 is an action item. This is a resolution to amend the engineering process and policy manual for erosion and sediment control permit requirements. It's been reviewed by legal.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 5.8 is an action item to authorize the mayor to sign the resolution and state and local agreement with ITD for the design and construction of the Grimes Pathway Phase 3. This is approved in the FY20 budget.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Item 5.9 on the agenda is an action item asking the council to award the bid and authorize the mayor to sign the contract for the Iowa Avenue pedestrian activated crosswalk and Midland and Blaine Avenue Hawk pedestrian signal project. And then we've got in parentheses, council must declare its reason for rejecting the apparent low bid of the Hawkeye construction. This was approved in the FY20 budget. So the rejection of the Hawkeye, the low bid for the Hawkeye had to do with an error in the bid. Daniel, would you like to, just so that I say it correctly, which is why we rejected the bid? But
Correct. Mayor, council, we received 2 bids on this project, one from Paul Construction, one from Hawkeye Construction. Hawkeye failed to include the required listing of subcontractors for their protected classes, electrical being the specific one that was needed for this, and so they were not a responsive bidder, and so that is why we are recommending rejection of their bid and award to the next bidder.
So Mayor, if I may, Daniel, and I'm just curious what the difference in the bid was, even though they didn't list their subcontractors?
It was $18,000 difference on a $400,000 project, so not a significant
Okay,
difference.
thanks.
Mayor Kling.
yes,
Daniel, wouldn't that be considered a technicality? I mean, for you to deny their bid because they didn't name their subs?
Our Public Works bidding documents require them to list those protected classes.
Is
where
that a
they're-
naming law? Is that, okay,
It is part of the state statute that they are required.
for Public
to
Works
name-
construction?
Yep. Yes.
All right, thank you.
So, yeah.
Okay.
okay. What's the will of the council?
Make a motion to authorize authorize the award of this bid as presented to us in the packet. Okay,
So,
yeah, do I need to go to that level of definition? I mean, it was described, but as, my motion was to accept it as it's been presented to us, and I guess as discussed. Well, I can read the request, I guess, if that's what's important to be done from a legal standpoint.
Go ahead, Doug.
Mayor, it's important that council state the reason
Okay.
for why the lowest bid was not the bid that
Okay.
was chosen.
So if I
would-
can recraft it, then that's
please,
fine.
Thank you.
Then I would make the motion to award the bid and allow the mayor to sign this contract for the Iowa Avenue pedestrian activated crosswalk at Midland and Blaine Avenue for the Hawk pedestrian signal. And that's with Paul Construction, knowing that they were not the low bidder, but that the other bidder, that since there was only two, was non-responsive in their bid by not providing the subcontractors as required in a public works bid request, that they are not being considered for this award. Is that enough?
Thank you. Good job.
Thanks.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 510 on the agenda is an action item to authorize the task order with Mountain Water Works for professional services on the irrigation water quality and pump station evaluation project as approved in the FY20 budget.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Item 511 is an action item to authorize the mayor and public works director to sign a contract with Core and Main LP for the waterworks materials restock for the FY20 project as approved in the FY20 budget.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Item 512 on the agenda is an action item to authorize the addition of DKS Associates to the 2018 through 2020 request for qualifications, first choice hiring roster, and to authorize the mayor and public works director to sign miscellaneous professional services term agreement with DKS Associates. Jeff? Thank you.
Mayor, City Council, this is a request to put DKS on our first choice roster. They have a specific and unique skill set for us in that we're looking at an intelligent transportation system. And so they work.
Say that again.
They work with intelligent transportation systems, and we are looking for a system that would take our 60 signals, and we'd be able to remotely monitor those. There's also the police is looking at partnering with us in a video management system at the intersections. And this particular firm has helped us in smaller areas, but we want to add them to the roster so that as we move forward with the ITS project, that they'll be available. So, stand for any questions you might have.
And Mayor Kling, I'll make the motion to authorize this addition of DKS Associates as requested.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Item 513 is an action item to authorize the mayor to sign and submit a letter of support for the city's Class A recycled water reuse permit.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Item 514 on the agenda is action item to authorize the mayor and public works director to sign the task order for scope of services with Brown and Caldwell for Nampa wastewater program fiscal year 2020 phase 2 upgrades to serve as the owner's advisor services. It's approved in the FY20 budget.
So moved.
Second.
We don't want Matt to come up. He's been waiting.
No. See enough of them as it is.
It's a long wait. Yes. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Item 515 is another action item to authorize the mayor and public works director to sign a task order for scope of work with Brown and Caldwell for fiscal year 2020 Environmental Compliance Division Technical Support Services as approved in the FY20 budget.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
516 is an action item to request authorization to submit applications for the streets FY20 grant funding.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Good
Roll
job.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom.
Yes.
And item 517 on the agenda is an action item to authorize the task order with Keller Associates for project design services on Zone F sewer and gravity rehabilitation as approved in the FY20 budget.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Hogaboom.
Yes.
Levi.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Skog.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on to section 7, which is unfinished business. We have a number of ordinance readings this evening, which will take us a few minutes. And so we'll start with item 7.1 on the agenda. The first action item is the first reading of an ordinance for zoning and map amendment from suburban residential to single-family residential 6,000 square feet of 409 South Midland Boulevard for Christopher K. Schultz. The public hearing was on October 7th, 19.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho to provide RS6 zone designation for certain lands commonly known as 409 South Midland Boulevard, Nampa, Idaho, 83686, comprising approximately .71 acres more or less, determining that said zoning is in the best interests of the citizens and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the City of Nampa, Idaho, rezoning said property from RA to RS6, providing for a recording, instructing the city engineer to designate said property as RS6 on the official zoning maps and other area maps of the City of Nampa, providing for severability, providing for an effective date, and repealing all ordinances, rules, and regulations and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Mayor
It-
Kling,
Yes.
was this asked to be passed under suspension of
No,
rules?
but I was just going to say that. In fact, I will just say right now, these are all requested to pass under suspension of rules, in case I forget to say it again. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to authorize the passing of ordinance number 442 under 4472 under suspension of rules as read.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And as previously stated, I'm not going to say to request to pass again. It just applies. And thank you, Randy. So item 7.2 is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to single-family residential 7,000 square feet, RS 8.5 or RS 22, single-family residential 22,000 zoning district for Lake Lowell Avenue located at, I'm not going to read this full thing because you're going to read it, correct? Okay.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho, determining that land certain right-of-way commonly known as Lake Lowell Avenue lying between Middleton Road and the east and Midway Road to the west, comprising approximately 3.03 acres more or less, lay contiguous to the city limits of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, and that said right-of-way segment should be annexed into the City of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, and be assigned a zoning designation corresponding to adjoining private lands, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said maps property to the official maps of the City of Nampa, Idaho, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith, providing for an effective date, and directing the clerk of the City of Nampa to file a certified copy of the ordinance and map of the area to be annexed to Canyon County, Idaho, the State Idaho Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Madam Mayor, I'll move the council approve the reading of the approve the ordinance as read under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Item 7.3 is an action item. It's the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to RS6 zoning district for Calvary Springs subdivision at 1713 East Iowa Avenue for Kent Brown representing Trilogy, Idaho.
An ordinance determining that certain lands commonly known as 1713 East Iowa Avenue, comprising approximately 16.79 acres more or less, lay contiguous to the city limits of the City of Nampa, County of Canyon, State of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the City of Nampa, Idaho, as part of the RS6 zone, declaring that said lands by proper legal description as described below be part of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add the property to the official maps of the City of Nampa, Idaho, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith, providing an effective date, and directing the clerk of the city to file a certified copy of the ordinance and map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, State of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code 63215.
Mayor Kling, I'd make a motion to pass ordinance number 4474 as read, under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 7.4 is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to RS 6 at 1700 East Iowa Avenue for Ronald and Jeanette Hansen. This is for connection to city water and sewer services and construction of a new home.
An ordinance determining that certain lands commonly known as 1700 East Iowa Avenue comprising approximately .37 acres more or less lay contiguous to the city limits of the city of Nampa, county of Canyon, state of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the city of Nampa, Idaho as part of the RS6 zone, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below be part of the city of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add property of the official maps of the city of Nampa, Idaho, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith, providing an effective date, and directing the clerk of the city of Nampa to file a certified copy of the ordinance and map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, Idaho, the state of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63215.
Move as read with under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Item 7.5 on the agenda is an action item. It's the first reading of ordinance for amendment of Title 10, Chapter 1, Section 19 pertaining to professional public self-storage facility design and regulations, locations allowed, structure appearance, project design layout, lighting, security, and signage, and amendment of Title 10, Chapter 3, Section 2 pertaining to land use controls for storage, space rental, and storage, conditioned multi-level building for the city of Nampa. And this is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance enacted by the Nampa City Council amending Title 10, Chapter 1, Section 10-119 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the professional public mini-storage facility design regulations, amending Title 10, Chapter 3, Section 1032 of the Nampa City Code containing the land use tables for the city of Nampa, providing for an effective date, providing for severability, and repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Motion to pass the previously read ordinance under suspension of rules.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
No.
Levi?
No.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
No.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Mayor?
That's catching me off guard. So,
You got your year's worth.
my goodness. Okay. Wow. So, wow. It did catch me off guard totally, and I'm sorry, we're not supposed to have a discussion right now. I need the clarity just to make sure the change to the ordinance really was, it resides back to council, right?
My recollection, it was adopting P and Z's recommendations
Right.
with the exception of, it
Conditional
came back to council, and if I recall, Councilman Skog was absent, I think, that meeting, but I think it passed 4-1. I think it was, so that's
So,
just
but
my
we-
recollection.
It
of the history.
also said that the no longer is a 2,500 foot distance.
Correct.
It also says that that we can't evaluate or we can't say where
So Mayor,
each goes.
legal, we can't have clarification from staff or not?
Is this process?
This is a process challenge because I didn't expect it to come to me, and our votes have changed from our last vote. So that's really interesting to me. And what I need to clarify, if this were not to pass, then we had a 180-day moratorium. And if I understand correctly, we're pushing the end of that moratorium. We would default back to the original ordinance, which would mean the council would not have the opportunity to vote. If there was a conditional use permit, it would go to planning and zoning as originally prescribed. So what we would be saying is we're going back to what we originally did. Is that correct? If this is a no.
Mayor, yeah, the moratorium had no effect on the actual code itself. It simply put a hold on applications.
Right.
If this ordinance is not passed, it won't preclude future ordinances. But if the moratorium expires, then whatever the underlying city code is will continue to operate.
And how many days are we in the 180? Does anybody know? I think we're there too. So I need to vote yes, otherwise we default to nothing. We just default to where we were, right? Okay.
Just a question for clarification. So my recollection is, Councilman Rodriguez said, what we preserved is it did come before us.
Right.
And so rather than go to P and Z for the CUP with an appeal coming before council, it came before us, and then the 2,500 foot thing was dropped as a condition, so we can still say no if it comes before us. That was my understanding,
Right.
because there were some members who were looking to do the RV boat storage. That was different than the locker thing, and they said they couldn't even apply if we adopted the. So that was one of the things that was dropped. They can't apply, and it comes before us, and we say yes or no. That was my recollection. Okay.
So just making sure, I'm going to vote yes, and I need to make sure my yes vote supports the fact that the CUP now comes before council for us to make the determination, correct? Otherwise, I think we're going to end up past our moratorium and we revert back to the old ordinance. So, pardon? Right, okay. So mine is a yes to break that because I think we need to bring it up before council. Okay. That just surprised me because there was such a shift.
Sorry, Mayor, I knew how to vote, I just was keeping everybody away.
I know, there you go. Thank you, Bruce.
I'm here for you.
Let's go for
Okay.
one more time.
Let's try this again, yeah. It's going to be a new record. Item 7.6 on the agenda is the first reading of ordinance for amendment of Title 10, Chapter 33, which is the corridor beautification, changing the title heading, including landscaping, and amending Section 103301 pertaining to the description and purpose of the corridor beautification and landscaping provisions, amending Section 103302 pertaining to general landscaping requirements, and amending Section 103303 pertaining to the definition of corridors, and amending Section 103304 pertaining to corridor landscaping requirements for the city of Nampa.
An ordinance enacted by the Nampa City Council changing the heading of the Nampa City Code, Title 10, Chapter 33, amending Title 10, Chapter 33, Section 1033-1 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to descriptions and purposes of the corridor beautification and landscaping provision of the Nampa City Code, amending Title 10, Chapter 33, Section 33-2 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the general landscaping requirements, amending Title 10, Chapter 33, Section 1033-3 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the definitions of corridors, amending Title 10, Chapter 33, Section 33-4 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to corridor landscaping requirements, providing for an effective date, providing for severability, and repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Mayor Kling. I'd make a motion to adopt the ordinance number 4477 as read under suspension of rules, and I also see that it's asked for a summary of publication, so I would include that in my motion.
Thank you very much.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 7.8 is action item. It's the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to RS 6 at 700 West Mariah Avenue for Nick Babick for the Promised Land subdivision.
An ordinance determining that certain lands commonly known as 700 West Mariah Avenue, comprising approximately 7.44 acres more or less, lay contiguous to the city limits of the city of Nampa, county of Canyon, state of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the city of Nampa, Idaho, as part of the RS 6 zone, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below be part of the city of Nampa, county of Canyon, Idaho, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the city of Nampa, Idaho, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith, providing an effective date, and directing the clerk of the city of Nampa to file a certified copy of the ordinance of the map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, state of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63215.
So moved.
And it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
Yes.
Okay,
Second.
any discussion? Roll call.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Stogg?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
So clarification, I'm sorry, so 7-7 was just, or 7-6 and 7-7 were repeats. Is that right? I have in my packet the number 4477.
I think it was publication. Posted.
Yeah, summary publication was 7.7.
I mean, they read the same, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I forgot to suggest, and I appreciate Randy catching it, that the summary of publication was actually approved, and it went along with the actual
Okay,
preceding
thanks.
ordinance. Okay, number 8 on the agenda is pending ordinances, and 9 would be executive sessions, which we have none, so I would stand for a motion. Before I stand for that motion, just a reminder, our special council meeting on Monday, December the 2nd, we will not have a council meeting at 6 o'clock because it is the Festival of Trees that night. We're going to have a special council meeting from 5 until 6, and then we will be done by 6. So our council meeting will begin at 5 and will not take place at 6. And we've posted that on our website, but just a reminder. And stand for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.